Councilmember Shealy. Here. Councilmember Lewis.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell. Here. Councilmember Wagner.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory. Here. Councilmember Waring. Here. Councilmember Seekings.
Here.
Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Griffin. Here. Councilmember Moody. Here. Councilwoman Jackson. Here. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. Now, if you would like to join us, Councilmember Jackson will lead us in a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, we thank you, Heavenly Father, for gathering us here in this place where we choose to be respectful of you, honoring your will, and asking your purposes to be placed before us. We ask to be respectful of one another. We thank you for the blessings of our citizens who continue to be involved in the present and the future decisions that we are making. And we look forward, Lord, to the guidance that you will give each one of us. Help us to be generous of heart and spirit, and to remember those who mourn, especially our mayor and his family, for his matriarch mother. We look forward to honoring her memory in the days ahead. Thank you for all those who are able to celebrate joyous Thanksgiving, and we ask for your wisdom. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. If I may start with just a few announcements. First of all, particularly for those who are here for the first time, in the most unlikely event that we needed to evacuate the chambers, these are the two exit doors right here in front of me. The room to my right also has an exit door. In the event that were to occur, please do not use the elevator, but use the two stairs going down to the first floor and then the one stairway out the front door. Just in that unlikely event, I wanted everybody to be aware. Upstairs, you've got that one exit up there. Secondly, I wanted to welcome back to the fold of city employee, Miss Tracy McKee. Tracy, you want to stand up over here and maybe come forward? So I think all the council members know Tracy. She used to work for the city in our IT department as the head of our GIS, and she got hired away to become the chief of data officer for Baltimore, and we've reeled her back to Charleston. So glad to have Tracy back. She's going to be the special assistant to the mayor, Mr. Martin's former position, with the addition that she will in effect be the city's first chief innovation officer. And so we welcome you back to the city, Tracy, and I just wanted to share that with council. I also wanted to just take a minute and thank particularly my council members who reached out with their expressions of sympathy about the loss of my mother, and the many citizens who have done so as well. She was a really grand woman and served on this city council right here for 2 terms in the late 70s and early 80s. And I was talking with Mayor Riley over the weekend, and he shared what a delight and how thoughtful and gracious my mother was as she served on city council, serving our citizens. I'm so proud of the heritage. Frankly, it's part of what inspired me to become involved in city government, was her leadership and her role model that she was for me. So anyway, thank you so much for your expressions of sympathy. It's you only have one mom, and so it is difficult. But I'll share that she was ready for the Lord, and the Lord was ready for her, and it was given her years and health. It was a real blessing. So, but thank everyone for that. Next, I'd like to recognize a wonderful young gentleman who I've just met, but as soon as I read this letter that he and his mother sent out, that I just got at City Hall about a month ago. I said, I want this young man to come to City Hall and share his efforts here over the last 3 years. Nicholas March, his mother had the cover letter, I must admit, from Miss Candy Marsh, and it states that while delivering items to a local organization that assists the homeless, this would have been about 3 years ago, and those who are in need, Nicholas couldn't understand why people were standing around in the cold weather waiting for a soup kitchen in Charleston to open. And that prompted Nicholas to create his own campaign that he calls Smiles for Christmas, that he's now been operating for 3 years, raising money that's dedicated to the Tri-County Family Ministries. He's a young man. He attends Charleston Catholic School. And Nicholas, would you come forward and be recognized and maybe share a few remarks with us? You got a chance here to make your pitch, son. Go ahead. Speak a little in the microphone. There's the microphone. Tell us about Smiles for Christmas.
So Smiles for Christmas is an organization that I run, and so I asked for donations from basically family, friends, and local businesses. And so I decided to ask you this year. And so basically I box like toys, clothes, and like, well, let's say like toothbrushes and toothpastes, and like, I forgot the word, what's it called?
Toiletry kits.
Yeah, basically like that, like the stuff that people don't have really. And so I box them up and send them to my the organization, Tri-County Ministries, and I make all of it.
Would you like to get a picture with your parents as well? Y'all come forward.
We have a photographer, you can join us.
Yeah.
Cameron will get you.
Yeah, we'll stand right up. Oh, stand over a little bit more. So we'll be in front of George Washington here. And you know the again, good luck this year in the campaign. Oh, and one other announcement, and y'all, yeah, where do you send the donations to? Let's see, I've got the letter here. To Smiles for Christmas, the address is 1020 Briar Rose Lane, Ladson, South Carolina, 29456. I'll say it again, 1020 Briar Rose Lane, Ladson, South Carolina, 29456. There we go. Thank you very much. So one other announcement, y'all probably may have seen that I think on Friday our federal administration released a report that I have not read yet, but it's about climate change. And unfortunately, the picture is not very pretty for looking down just a few decades out, and we're already experiencing that with sea level rise. We're seeing the results of that in Charleston, South Carolina. We saw it again this past weekend. So Mr. Bloomberg, who helps us in many initiatives in Charleston, helped to produce a movie called Paris to Pittsburgh, and he is sponsoring a free showing of this documentary next Monday night, 7 o'clock. We're having it at the Gilliard. The public is invited. There are invitations on the council's desk, but also at the sign-in table. But you do need to RSVP. There's no charge, but there are a limited number of seats. So if anybody wants to come and see Paris to Pittsburgh next Monday night, it's for free. Now, next we have public hearings. I think we have about 8, 9 of them tonight. And if I could ask the public to please keep your remarks to 2 minutes and on point to the matter at hand. The first public hearing is an ordinance establishing the Church Creek Drainage Redevelopment Project area, and I don't know if Mr. Lindsay has any preliminary remarks or presentation he's going to make about this.
We also have Mr. DeSocia as well, if we need to answer any questions. And as that's coming up, I really have no opening remarks other than to say that this is the public hearing associated with the creation of the Church Creek Tax Increment Finance District, which you all reviewed 2 months ago, the purpose of which is only to invest in enhancements that would help to mitigate flooding in the Church Creek Basin.
All right. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir. Please come forward. State your name and address when you address council, please.
Let's go up.
I'll help you out. There we go.
Citizens make public comment under the South Carolina Plan Enabling Act, and all amendments been attached since 1999 regarding the matter before us. For the record, before I state my name and whatever, it's under the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, case number 182373, which cites federal components within this particular granted area, and also S18264, which deals with the issue of public safety, public health, and other issues. For the record, Bryant versus the IRS. Take that. All right, so again, this is the beginning of something new. No, this is the beginning of something old. When you're annexed into the city of Charleston, the county's areas did not live up to its end of the deal. Okay, the Plan Enabling Act since 1999. So this is not even really a real issue for the city, it's an issue for the state and federal government to find the money to deal with this issue. And we hope that the federal and state government deals with this issue. It's not an issue for a city or a county to deal with on its own, or even partner in any kind of way. It's kind of for this city to take action and sue the state and federal government, provide resources they need in the public health and safety and the Plan Enabling Act. That's what should be the focus on this initiative.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Leah Farrell with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We support this plan and we're very encouraged by the effort to remedy the errors made in the Church Creek Basin. We believe this is a great step forward. We would just like to note that the redevelopment plan principles in the ordinance should be applied citywide. We of course know that there is not enough money to fix all of our past discretions, but surely we could be proactive and formalize policies citywide as this plan proposes to protect and restore wetlands, invest in improved drainage systems, and establish water-smart parks. Let's preserve our historic buildings and community character, not our antiquated development practices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Tecklenburg, members of City Council. My name is Betsy LaForce. I'm the Communities and Transportation Project Manager with the Coastal Conservation League. The Conservation League is in full support of the creation of the TIF district for the Church Creek Drainage Basin area that is in such need of infrastructure improvements. Establishing this TIF district is an opportunity to apply one of several available funding mechanisms to address and finance drainage infrastructure and advance the vision of the plan laid out for the revitalization of West Ashley. As the area grows over the next 25 years, utilizing creative financing like TIF districts will be an important way to finance projects that are so needed. In order to capture the greatest amount of potential of revenue within the TIF boundaries, we would encourage you to consider incorporating the entire commercial district of Long Savannah, as well as the existing commercial corridor around Ashley River Road from Bees Ferry to 526, where there are several older existing strip plazas that will likely be redeveloped in the coming years, as opposed to relying on new development alone, much of which is located in really swampy areas, even though not necessarily in the designated floodplain. A lot of the proposed existing boundaries are within extremely swampy areas. So we appreciate you taking that into consideration, and again, are very supportive of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, it comes before council. I would like to report to council Oh, excuse me. I would like to report to council that thankfully Charleston County agreed to become a part of the district. So between the city and the county, that enables us to have some real funding out of the TIF district. Now, unfortunately, and I certainly understand why, with what's called tax number 388, the school board is really limited with their property tax revenue, and they really rely on everything that they're getting right now. So they did send us a letter opting out or not agreeing to be a part of this. So the funding for this would be squarely on the city and the county. And so we revised our estimate of what the TIF district would generate. And with all due respect, we can't change the boundary at this point already because the county's already agreed to it. We'd have to go back to them for approval again. We don't want to do that. But after 5 years of the projected development, the TIF district would generate about $1.8 million per year. After 10 years, we believe it would generate, the TIF district, about $2.4 million per year. And of course, as soon as we get to that point, I think 5 years from now is generating over $1 million a year. We'll be able to bond to raise some real funds to be able to pay for some of these projects. Doesn't mean we have to wait to get projects going. We can, if we had the money, we can spend the money on a project, and then when we get the financing from the TIF district, we can pay ourselves back and then spend that money somewhere else for another drainage project. So it's all money that will be dedicated 100% to drainage improvements. With the bonding capacity, we should be able to generate $25 million over time for drainage improvements in the Church Creek Basin, which we all know we're looking for ways to pay for these expensive stormwater improvements, and this is one way to do it.
Move for approval.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Councilmember Griffin.
I've made a couple of arguments about this before, about having a TIF totally dedicated to stormwater funding, and I'm going to agree with that this time. But I still think we need to look for ways to fund some infrastructure out there in that area, because we're asking this area to grow commercially, and that means there's going to be a lot more cars riding around. And I don't know if y'all been out there lately, but it takes me an hour and a half to drive 5 miles in the morning and just as long to get home at night. So we have a serious problem there. And the other thing I want to say about how we fund this thing is, I'm all for us using the money from the TIF to pay us back for projects, but we've got to start on these projects immediately. We already have. I want to see that happen. But, I think we have to be careful about saying, oh, well, we'll use the TIF money to pay back and then use the money somewhere else. Because, everybody that lives in that area is a valued resident of the city of Charleston, just as valued as downtown. And there's been plenty of projects that have had high price tags where we haven't had to reimburse for a project. And I don't want that to be the case, because these people are hardworking Charlestonians that pay a lot of tax money. And they've lived in this area for a long time, and it's been neglected. So it's about time we stepped up and did something for this area. And so I don't want us to get in the state of mind that they feel like we should have to pay the city back for the help, because a lot of these problems we've created, and it's time for us to go in there and fix them.
Thank you. I'd like to just clarify that every penny that's generated by the district must be spent in the district.
But if we generate money, if we pay for money out of stormwater fund now and we reimburse ourselves with TIF money, we can then spend the money that we've paid back somewhere else.
Technically, that's true.
That's what I'm saying.
But if it generates $25 million, we got to spend $25 million in the Church Creek drainage basin. Yes, sir.
That was the point I wanted to be clear. You said in the Church Creek drainage basin. My understanding is that if you generate money within a TIF, the purple area, it has to be spent within that area, and those are specific tax map numbers, those pieces of property. Now, you might go out of that a little bit to benefit that area. I guess my question is, can you go really outside of that and still, how far out of that can you go? I'm going to support the thing. I just wanted a little clarification on exactly how that money can be spent.
Well, I've asked Mr. Desessar to answer the question. I will say I know that the language says proximate to the district, so it don't have to be exactly in one of these pink areas. You can be nearby, but I think the language of this ordinance allows improvements to the basin, if I may.
But it's got to benefit the district. I mean, no matter how far out you go, it still has to benefit the district.
Absolutely.
Is that so? How far out can you go?
Well, in the context of drainage, as I understand drainage, it doesn't pay attention to boundaries. So it's conceivable that some amount of acreage adjacent to, but certainly nearby the boundaries of this district, an improvement to drainage efforts there would have benefit, outflow, inflow, whatever the drainage terms are, to this specific district. You couldn't go 10 miles away and do something that has no tangential or real benefit to this TIF district. But neither are you required, if you have a project that would take you outside the specific boundaries, where you have to finish a large drainage basin or whatever it might be, you can spend money outside of these specific boundaries, but that expenditure has to accrue to the specific benefit of this TIF district.
Yeah, and I guess that was my point. If you've got water coming down, say through Shadamoss, through the creek there, or through the Church Creek Basin, and you want to solve that, could you spend the money out of this TIF to, say, divert that flow of water to the Ashen River, up at the top of the basin? Would something like that work?
I don't understand the science well enough, but conceivably, and if any such expenditure were made, that has to be approved by City Council. It has to come back to City Council and be approved. I can give you an example. There was a pocket park, I think in front of Meminger, that was adjacent to the King Street Gateway, and when Meminger was fixed up so nicely, that intersection where you come in to about the three ways you come into the area in front of Meminger, and City Council approved an expenditure of some tens of thousands of dollars, I believe.
1.2 million. Yeah.
Well, but some amount of money from the TIF.
Yes.
I'm not sure all of it was from the TIF, but some amount of money from the TIF, together with other city funds, went to that park adjacent to Meminger in the new auditorium. But that came to City Council. City Council had to approve it by ordinance, and then notice of that approval had to be given to the overlapping taxing entities. So in this example, Councilmember Moody, if City Council in the future were asked to spend some money outside of the TIF related to drainage improvements that benefit this district, it would have to come back to City Council, and then notice of that action would have to be given to the county in this instance, since it's the other participating political subdivision.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how we might be able to affect this. For example, if we had some property in Shadamoss, like we've just bought these houses, if we could use this money to, say, reclaim some of this property that's flooding all the time, I mean, could that be used for that? Because it would benefit maybe the TIF if you created a retention pond there or something.
If City Council made the finding of benefit, it could be.
You'd have to individual basis.
Yes,
That's
sir.
a legal response. This is my John Tecklenburg response. This is Church Creek right here, and it comes up and it drains this whole area. So any project we have that helps water get out to Church Creek, that's allowed.
I'm going to depend on Mr. Charlton's opinion. With all due respect, Mr. Mayor.
Understood. Any further discussions or comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Number 2, Mr. Morgan, do you want to?
Number 2 deferred.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 2 has been deferred.
But because it was advertised.
It was advertised, so we're going to change the zoning at some point on 217 Ashley Avenue. Would anyone like to speak to that matter? All right.
So I have a question, Mr. Mayor, just if Mr. Morgan while he's here. First off, to those of you who are here for a public hearing, we may not be changing the zoning on this, not we're going to.
We may consider it.
Right, thank you. Secondly, why is this deferred? Do you know? I mean, this has been kicking around for a while.
The applicant requested deferral.
It's been to the Planning Commission though, right?
Yes, the Planning Commission recommended disapproval.
And how long ago did that happen?
It was at their last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry, their October meeting, excuse me, their last meeting was last night.
So while we're here, you just want to explain to council what the matter is?
Sure.
I guess.
So this is at the corner of Cannon Street and Ashley Avenue. It's a historic house, residence, one of the largest in the area over there in that neighborhood. And the request is to go from the DR2 zoning district at present to a limited business to allow for commercial use in the property for diversity of uses for a property sale. And you see some of the images of the property there.
All right. And no one wants to be heard on this matter. We'll move on to number 3. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And this is property owned by the City of Charleston. It's portions of 3 parcels at Hanover, Lee, Nassau, and Aiken. This is property that is targeted for affordable housing and RFP. And it is an effort to make it more conducive for that development. It's taking it from the Old City Height District 4, meaning 4 stories, to the Old City Height District 5, meaning it would have an allowance for 5 stories. The property is, again, in the northern areas of the east side. Meeting Street is over here to the left. The Housing Authority is already building some affordable housing in this location here. The park across the street is here with the Martin Luther King pool, and South Carolina State is going to have a facility over here. So it's in the center of a lot of different things, and both staff and Planning Commission recommend for approval of this height district change.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter?
Move for approval.
Second. Motion to approve. This is for second reading. Any comments, discussions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed now for third reading and ratification? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Number 4.
Okay. This is a very small parcel at the corner of Line Street and Cumming. It is a traditional corner store. Here is the image. This is a neighborhood right now that's mostly DR2F, Cannonboro, Elliottboro. Here's Cumming Street going north, Line Street moving east-west in that location. We've got some images of the building. Again, aerial image. And a very traditional corner store looking structure. And there have been a number of these over the last couple of years that have gone to the Commercial Transitional District, which houses other corner stores in the neighborhood. You can see some of the other ones in the surrounding corners. So we think it's an appropriate use within the context of this neighborhood and appropriate to go to that commercial district. Both staff and Planning Commission recommend approval for the rezoning to CT.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, it comes to City Council. We got a motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Number 5.
Okay. This is property at 295 Calhoun Street. It's directly across from Roper Hospital. It's on the northern end of the Alberta Long Lake in this location. On the eastern side is Berry Street. There are some other facilities that Roper owns over here to the left that are about to be demolished. We have some images here of the property. You can see it is in the urban core of our comprehensive plan. That's why we would recommend for the rezoning in this location, because it is urban core, corresponds with the MU1 workforce housing request. The aerial image shows the property. It currently houses a vacant MUSC medical building and some surface parking. And we've got a little bit tighter view of it here and another aerial, and you can see it from the other side, and street view in this location here. And again, staff and Planning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning to the MU1 workforce housing.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to come tonight. We are speaking on behalf of the applicant MUSC tonight as representative for them here. We are excited to be involved with this wonderful piece of property and to bring housing onto the medical district of Charleston. We have appreciated working with staff and the support we received and the support we received, full support at Planning Commission. And thank you for your consideration tonight. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
What's your name?
I'm sorry, Jason Long, LMNT.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Seeking.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a piece of property, as you know, that's in the very northernmost portion of my district. It's at the head of Long Lake. The development team did come and see me about this about, how long was it now? Probably about 6 or 7 months ago, and we talked about it. Just to give a little historical context on what's happened to this property in the last year, when we went through all of our zoning amendments and went to height-based zoning, this originally in the height maps was at 45 feet. It was the very last piece of property. It stepped down across the street from the Ronald McDonald House. It was 45 feet. We actually upped it at the very last minute, the last amendment, to go to 85 feet, recognizing it was in that hospital corridor there, and there would be a lot of opportunities to go in there. The north end of Long Lake has been subject to a lot of conversation. Long before the current group who's going to develop this came along, there was a lot of talk about access to the north end of Long Lake for pedestrian and bikes and all that. There's actually been some talk about putting a road through there. I think we've finally given up on that, haven't we? Putting a road there connecting 4th Street. Anyway, there's a lot of things going on. This is a zoning that we have approved. It's a good zoning. I've spoken with the developer. The problem I've got, and I'm going to ask for a deferral before you all groan, because this is going to be a big density on a small part of Charleston Village, and they just don't know about this. This came on our agenda on Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. This is now Tuesday after Thanksgiving. I got to go talk to the people who live on that end to let them know that they're about to get an 85-foot height district with a fairly dense residential project on there that's going to have added traffic burdens, and they just need a chance to be heard on that. So to those of you who are here, this doesn't mean that I'm opposed to this or I'm going out campaigning against it. I just got to bring this to the members of Charleston Village. So I'm going to ask my fellow council members to defer just for one time so I can spend the next 2 weeks making sure that everyone knows what's going on. And if there are any questions specifically about traffic and about that north end of Long Lake, we can talk about that through the planning department and through the developer. So I'd move for deferral for one motion.
A motion to defer in a second. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support the deferral. But Councilman Seekings, I know that the next building is not up before us.
Right.
The building to the west of that. Right. I know Robertson Francis some time ago had some plans for that site as well. And I'm just wondering, while we're going through all of this, are we going to have transportation answers subject to if that were to get developed into?
So good question. That whole square there has been somewhat of an interesting history. You may recall we actually rezoned the western portion by 4th Street. It's actually in the accommodations overlay. There was a plan between Roper and MUSC to build a parking garage and wrap it with an accommodation to service patients' families at Roper and St. Francis. We zoned it up, they were ready to go, and then that project went by the wayside. Since then, then we had some economic issues coming around here. The properties have sat vacant, but if you look specifically at this property that we're talking about, the access point in and out of that, there will not be a curb cut on Calhoun Street. You can't get in and off of Calhoun Street. It's 15, 20,000 cars a second over there. You just can't get in and out of there. So Halsey Boulevard is going to be the access point. At some point, we're going to have to talk about, just so you all know, just to sort of answer your question, Councilmember Waring, the second 2 lots to the left, to the west, 4th Street stops. 4th Street actually does not connect to Lockwood Boulevard for reasons that no one can actually explain. It still shows that it goes through, but literally one night, someone came and blocked 4th Street off, and you can't get through. So as that area gets developed, and it will get developed because we've made it high, it's got zoning, well, it will have zoning on it. I think the zoning will go through to have some residential there. I don't know what Roper's going to do with those properties. I know they want to do something with them. I'd love to see them be medical office, but, you know, we'll see how that all goes. But this is a large parcel with 85 feet on it. What's the density that we can put on there? I mean, it's a bunch of units.
With the MU, it would be unlimited density.
Unlimited, right?
Well, so other than what the height limits.
So, right, so with the 85 feet. So I just, 2 weeks to sort of get this all geared up because it's a big, dense project with one access point, one.
Just to follow up on that, it was the transportation question, and I guess the circulation of what will be built there in conjunction with the other parcels that you may mention. I don't think we ought to be in a vacuum on that. To one developer, I think a plan needs to be put in place that makes sense now for that traffic, vehicular traffic.
Totally agree, and we'll look at the curb cuts, but again, I mean, the access from Calhoun Street is limited to almost non-existent up there. And we have the added benefit and joy of that area floods like crazy. Now, thanks to Mr. Newham, we have a check valve along there that actually is working, so the flooding has really been reduced significantly, although on Saturday and Sunday it was pretty bad up there. So just to clear the air, so everyone who lives in that area you see to the east in Halston Village, which is fairly dense, knows this is coming. I just need a couple weeks. So thanks. And we'll talk about transportation for sure.
Did anyone else want to make a comment? So
we'll give them first reading. Yeah.
Yes.
It has. They did.
Yes, sir.
They did approve it.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion to defer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It is deferred. I will point out that just because we're switching from November to December, you only have 1 week.
Well, we may be here the second week of December, so we'll see how that all goes.
Okay. Terrific. Next item. Bless you.
Okay. Item E6 is a rezoning at the Ashen property in West Ashley off of Old Town Road, where PRC is doing their new park to the rear. This is property that would be used by the Low Country Open Land Trust for an office, and the request is to go from SR1, which is the base zoning of all the property there, to a general office, which is essentially just an office zoning. There's some images here that show where the property is in relation to the rest of the county park back here. Our fire station is here out in front. The idea is that you won't really even see the office that would be on the site. It would be back in the middle of the trees and would be a very low-key office for the Low Country Open Land Trust. Both staff and Planning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is James Wilson. I'm here on behalf of the Low Country Land Trust. Really here just to answer questions, but just what I would add to what Mr. Morgan said is that this property is already subject to a conservation easement held by Historic Charleston Foundation. It's also subject to an agreement with the county. County Parks Recreation owns the adjacent property as well as, of course, as Charlestown Landing. And the property has restrictions that put a 150-foot buffer on the frontage on Old Town Road. There's also wetlands on the property, separating it from the residential area. And mainly, the property is restricted so that the only building that can go there is for nonprofit use, for an office use, and with a maximum 4,000 square foot footprint on a 4-acre parcel. So in other words, a very small footprint. A few percent of the total land area of the whole area. There's more restrictions as well, as you would expect with a conservation easement. We think it's an appropriate use and would fit in well here. Glad to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments from council? Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is in my district, and I've talked to Mr. Wilson earlier. So there was some concern when the county acquired this property. One of the things they wanted to use back here was a launch for kayaks and canoes, and so the people at West Pawnee, which is close to this, were very much in opposition to some of the development that the county had wanted with this property. But talking with Mr. Wilson earlier today, that there are a lot of restrictions on this property, so it can't be transferred over to some other private developer or private use. This is going to be in the possession of the Open Land Trust, and it's 4 acres, and they're going to blend it in to the surrounding area. So the people at West Pawnee had an opportunity to come to the open forum on this. They expressed their concerns with it. They're happy with it. So I move to have it approved.
I did ask if anybody wanted to speak on this matter. Mr. Wilson came forward. No one else wanted to speak. Right.
Well, I second.
Councilmember Ware.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, isn't this part of the old Ashen plantation property? Right. I don't think we can ask for a better steward than the Low Country Open Land Trust.
Exactly.
We can ask for any better. So enough said.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Mr. Morgan?
Yes. And we have a recently annexed property that would be zoned in the city. This is 1621 Donnie Lane on James Island. It's it's about a half acre. It would be zoned for RR1, rural residential. And here you see it at along Donnie Lane, other properties that are already in the city across the street. Both staff and Planning Commission recommend approval.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, it comes to council. We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And number 8 is also a recent annexation, 1310 North Edgewater Drive in West Ashley. And it would come in as SR1, which matches other zoning of property in the neighborhood. Both staff and Planning Commission recommend it with SR1.
All right. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And then this ordinance amendment was at Planning Commission last night. Planning Commission met last night because their regular meeting date was the day before Thanksgiving. And at their meeting last night, they deferred action on this. So it's coming forward without a recommendation at this point in time. And the Planning Commission had interest in talking with City Council about this issue at the joint Planning Commission City Council workshop on December 6th.
All right. Well, let's have our public hearing first. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none.
Second.
We have a motion to defer and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Is deferred. So that's all of our public hearings. And next is the approval of our city council minutes only of October 23rd. We're going to defer November 13th. Okay. Any additions, changes, recommendations? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So next is our citizens participation period. And we got a whole lot of folks here that signed up. We got over 60 people. I think this is a record.
Bring in the pizza.
So, folks, we normally like to keep our citizens participation period to just 30 minutes, and I just divide, and that would only give you 30 seconds per person, which is pretty short. And I don't know, but I would guess that many of you are here about similar topics. And so that may not be the case, but so if you hear some point that's already been made, you might just think about, moving on to a different point or angle about it. I'm going to allow 45 seconds per person, which would run us about 45 minutes if everybody took their full 45 seconds. So, but I think that's reasonable to give you just a little more time. But I would just advise you also, you have to state your name and address, but I wouldn't waste a lot of time, with any kind of chit chat. Just get right to the point. We got 45 seconds, and that would be good. So, Madam Clerk will call out about 4 or 5 people at a time that have signed up, and y'all just queue up to the microphones We don't have to go exactly in the same order. As long as your name gets called out in the batch, just come on up. Thank you.
Okay. Muhammad Idris, Kim Gardner, Jim Nelson, Gary Matthews, and Matt Shehone.
Evening, Muhammad Idris. This time of year, between now and New Year's, a whole lot of our people, youth growing up, would be killed from alcoholic drinking. So we, the Minister Against Drinking Alcohol, is asking the city to take ABC, ask the whiskey stores to take ABC off their stores, because we are teaching our children to learn the ABC. Then we place ABC on the whiskey store, then lock them up for drunk driving. Now that's a shame before God.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Kim Gardner. I'm with Novalex in Hartsville, South Carolina. I'm here in opposition of the bag proposal that you have guys going. One of the things that we ask is that you slow down and actually take a hard look at this ordinance. If it goes into effect, you're looking at each retailer spending an additional $60,000 to upwards of $100,000 that will be passed down onto the consumers. And a lot of consumers nowadays, they don't have the extra money. An example would be like my mother-in-law. You know, she's on a fixed income, and if costs were passed across to her, she wouldn't have the extra money. You know, there's other options. There's bagger training. There's recycling.
Thank you.
Hey, my name is Jim Nelson. I'm also with Novalex from Hartsville, South Carolina. Born and raised in South Carolina. I have 6 kids living in South Carolina now and going to the schools here. Just to back up what she said, really look at the information, because plastic bags are one of the most reusable items in the world today. We all use them for gym clothes or lunch or clean up after our pets, trash can receptacles. And Novalex actually has 2 of the largest recycling plants in the world, recycling, taking all kinds of plastic film, bread bags, bags that you get at stores, film. And we actually take that product and recycle it and reuse it to make bags out of that. So we have a complete cycle. And just ask y'all to consider all the options. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Gary Matthews. I'm in opposition of the bag ban as well. One of the items you're looking at going to is like a reusable bag. And we first look at that, we think, hey, that's a great idea, eliminate plastic. But what we don't know is that upwards of probably close to 100% of these are made in Asia. Asia is also responsible for polluting 90% of the waste in our ocean, Asia and Africa to combine together. So by banning single-use plastic bags that are reusable, recyclable, and has plenty of advantages to the environment, you're killing an American manufacturer, you're killing American jobs, and you're rewarding Asia. So we'd like you to also to vote no, or at least defer this and gather other facts on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Matt Seaholm. I'm the Executive Director of the American Progressive Bag Alliance. We represent America's manufacturers and recyclers of plastic bags. We've submitted testimony. You've got all that. I just want to leave you with one unintended consequence that often happens with ordinances like this. You'll see the little the recycling triangle on a lot of film, paper towel overwrap, Amazon pouches. It says store take back. It says drop it off at your store. If you get rid of plastic retail bags, that infrastructure no longer exists because there are no longer plastic bags at those stores. So I wanted you to just think about that as one thing, and I'll get back in a couple of seconds.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Anthony Bryant, Leah Cabela, James Anthony, Caitlin Hackathorn, and Michael Shimto.
Yes, sir.
Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has my name in the Fourth Circuit in Richmond. Freedom of speech don't come free no more. You got a lot of people in our community that are sellouts. They'll sell their own community out for money. That's what they're concerned about, getting paid. They don't care about black folk, and they care about their own interests. So they sold me out, made me recalcitrant and whatnot. So I'm happy to know that I don't run from nothing to nobody in the country. I stand tall against anybody on my own terms, I don't care what you think about me. I'm proud to be a black man in America.
Thank you, sir.
I'm James Anthony. I live in West Ashley. I'm here to urge City Council to vote for the environmentally friendly ordinance. I was here at the last meeting. One of the points I want to make is it's habitual that we use these plastic bags. A lot of us do not think about it. It's just an unconscious thing. So it's going to require this ordinance to change the behavior. As an example, the very next day after the meeting, I went into CVS to pick up one prescription. I got home and I realized I had a plastic bag with me. Another point I want to make is the grocery stores have these plastic recycling. I have a good friend who works for one of the large outlets here, and I asked him what happens to those bags, and he says we take and throw them in the dumpster in the back.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Hackathorn of Mount Pleasant, and I'm here to support this ordinance because I love the city very much, but I fear for our tourist economy and for our natural resources here. I think if we want to protect our local businesses and we want to protect the economy that we have here, that we need to protect our beautiful beaches, our beautiful oceans, and I don't think most of your constituents realize the implications of the single-use items that we're discussing tonight when they use those. I think they have faith in other people to properly dispose of those things and to make sure that they're not ending up in our waterways. And I think they have faith in you to do that, and I think this is your opportunity as their representation to make sure that you're protecting our economy and our local businesses, and you're making sure that our simple everyday actions aren't harming those things. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Michael Shemtov. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. I live in the city in Councilman Gregory's district, very proud to, and have businesses in 3 other councilmen's or councilperson's districts. So I come as a citizen, but also as a business owner. I am fully in favor of the plastic bag ban, fully in favor of City Council and the city taking more dramatic steps to curb our environmental impact. Nothing is a big deal until it is. Until one day we wake up and there's trash on our beaches, or something like Florida has seen. We just can't turn a blind eye to it. I think that what you're going to hear tonight is a bunch of citizens who came on their time, who are not getting paid, who are for it, and a small number of people who are getting paid to speak against it.
Nope. Got to ask y'all not to have an outburst. I will ask for a show of hands later, so everybody will be able to express their opinion. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Leah Colabello. I own a business based here in Charleston at 1630 Meeting Street. I'm also a member of Low Country Local First. I also have worked in ocean conservation for the last 12 years, and 6 of those years have been focused on marine plastic pollution. No doubt that tonight you will hear about the environmental costs of plastic pollution, so I'd like to speak about the economic costs of this global waste crisis. Single-use plastic items that appear to be low cost to business and free to customers actually cost quite a bit. The data I cite comes from cities across the country that track the municipal costs of single-use plastic. Residents in coastal areas pay almost $15 per person in overall litter cleanup. Cleanup costs can amount to as much as 17 cents per single-use plastic bags. Volunteers that clean up litter would cost $25 an hour. Here in Charleston, we have hundreds of cleanups, thousands of people, so hundreds of thousands of dollars in volunteer time that the city doesn't pay in cleanup costs. You actually benefit from that. Cost of material MRFs in extracting single-use plastic bags from machinery costs an average of no less than $300,000.
Close up.
Thank you, sir. What appears to cost very little or looks to be free actually costs quite a bit in taxpayer burden, fishing and tourism industry costs, environmental costs, and human health costs. Now and well into the future for generations to come who may very well enjoy the benefits or suffer the consequences of your decision here tonight. Thanks.
All right. Okay, I'll go ahead and ask a show of hands. How many here are in favor of the plastics ban? Raise your hand.
Can we just vote now?
And how many are in favor, how many are opposed to the plastics ban? All right. So that might help you reduce your comments as well. Okay.
Okay. So Mark Knapp, Skip Condon, Tara Sparkling, Lindsay Henderson, I guess, and kids. Rick Crawford. I think that's right. Matt.
Mark Knapp. Bees Ferry and Glen McConnell, the light got fixed, but like I said last time, in their infinite incompetence, they didn't bother to change the light at Ashley Circle. So now the traffic backs up from Ashley Circle onto Glen McConnell. Good job, guys. God, you need to find somebody who knows what they're doing. Plastic bags. I don't think enough of you are here old enough to remember when the tree huggers rammed plastic bags down our throats 40 years ago because we were destroying the forest. Here we go again. Same old recycle stuff. You guys got to get it together.
Mr. Condon.
My name is Skip Condon. I own Triangle Char and Bar in West Ashley. I've been in the restaurant business in Charleston since 1982. I was born here. I know a lot about the city. I just want to tell you that the hospitality industry has always been a huge supporter of the city of Charleston. Many years ago when Mayor Riley and then City Attorney Bill Regan came to us and asked us to support a hospitality tax, we supported it. Now it's up to 2%. I am 100% in agreement for the ban on plastics. I've been in the restaurant business for a long time, and I know what it does. So I'm 100% for it. However, there's a lot of small business people, and I would hope that y'all would consider that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're going to speak the 45 seconds?
Yes, but I've got the kids are going to speak, actually. I just wanted to say we're from the city. I don't know how to get this down.
Let me put
Thank you, sir. I'm Lindsay Henderson, and then they were going to speak on this.
Real quick.
Hi, my name is Betty, and I am 8 years old, and this is my brother Lewis, and he is 5 years old. With some friends of ours, we started James Island Ocean Activists. We educate other children about plastic pollution in our ocean and what we can do about it. We have collected over 300 signatures from other Charleston children who are dedicated to protecting our ocean. We try to help our parents remember to bring reusable bags to the grocery store or reusable straws out to dinner. But we have visited the landfill. We see what is happening there. We host beach sweeps and pick up so much trash. Charleston and our beaches need your help. Please vote yes to reduce plastic in Charleston and help us in our work to save the beaches and ocean. You can join us in our next beach sweep on November 4th on Valley Beach. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
December 4th. If y'all want to come out and do a beach sweep with us.
I think it's December 4th. Yeah, correct.
I don't know. She's taking over.
Okay.
What do you say?
I don't want to
use plastic bags because they kill the turtles.
I don't want to
use the plastic bags because they kill the turtles.
I don't want to
use plastic bags.
Okay, what name is on?
The plastic bags because they kill the turtles.
You want to say it again?
You want to say it again? Are you done?
She said no, she doesn't.
Okay. I don't know if any of you have gone to Aldi. They don't use plastic bags there, and they charge for the paper bags. And so I'm just used to it. It's the only place that I go and I grab a box and I take it and I put it in my car. And so it was really easy.
Your name?
It's
Tara and Shane Sperling.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say, when you travel around, if you go to other higher populated areas, Charleston, we're lucky to be a small city right now. It's not going to be that forever. And if you travel around the world, the country, see beaches, bags are disgusting. Straws are disgusting to be on the beach, in the water. And if we don't do something about it now, we're going to be like every other major city out there with a big problem on our hands. And it's time to take action. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name's Rick Crawford. I'm a local business owner, angler, and also a proud new father. And I'm deeply concerned about the impact plastic pollution is having on our fishery, and just want to fully support this plastic bag ban. And I'm going to take off because I'm going to go back to my daughter. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so Elena, I can't say your last name, Mohawk Avenue, Jana Davis, Jane Sperling, Alma Dale Smith.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Alina Bugas. I live on James Island. I'm a marine biologist supporting a local business here in Charleston. During my time at the College of Charleston, I studied microplastics, and I would like to just reiterate the crazy impact that plastics are having on our marine life and human health. I'd like to just reiterate that during my studies, I studied zooplankton, grass shrimp, oysters, sand samples, and water samples, and found microplastics in all of these samples. And these come from larger pieces of plastic. So I'd just like to point out that this is a global issue, and other countries have already taken steps to help this huge problem, and I'm really proud that Charleston is considering this ordinance, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Jana Davis. I'm the manager of the Surfrider Ocean Friendly Restaurant Program, but I'm also a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes educator. I have an office on 512 East Bay Street, and I'm here to speak from a healthcare perspective because I don't think it's been mentioned quite enough. Many food and beverage containers contain classes of chemicals such as phthalates and BPA, and these chemicals are what we refer to as endocrine disruptors. Endocrine disruptors mimic or interfere with the functions of hormones such as estrogen, testosterone, insulin, thyroid hormone, and other human hormones. And this can affect the human body at very, very low amounts. Exposure to these chemicals.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Dr. Alma Dale Smith. I'm a psychologist at the Medical Center. I want to speak first the urgency of this problem for our future. I'm a brand new grandmother. I remember when we didn't have plastic bags, and also the times maybe I was a tree hugger, but I always carry my bags to the store. And the second thing I wanted to talk about was, as a psychologist, I know that people can change. Many people say it's going to be too much trouble, people won't do it. But when you have incentives and you begin to get a cultural trend, people will change their behaviors pretty readily. It's urgent, and I please applaud you for having this ban on your table.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Megan Deshane. I'm a bar manager in town. I also am a founding member of Stralis Summer and the Vice President of the United States Bartenders Guild here in Charleston. I am in full support of this ban of single-use plastics and styrofoam. As a member of the hospitality industry, I see the way firsthand how, A, how much Charleston depends on this as an economy driver, but also B, how much waste is produced as a result of that. So these sorts of measures will help compel that. Another point I'd like to make is that one of the problems that we had with Stralis Summer was not having solutions. The more people that come to the table with this problem, the more solutions are generated, and I challenge you guys here with the plastic to begin to problem solve with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Andrew Wonderly, Katie Zimmerman, Jared Nicholson. Okay. Kelly something. Trovelson,
but you missed Sullivan Hamilton.
And Sullivan Hamilton.
Andrew.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you. My name is Andrew Wonderly. I'm your Charleston waterkeeper. We do a ton of cleanups. I've never seen a representative from Novalex or from the American Progressive Bag Alliance at one of our cleanups. If they were to come to one of these cleanups, here's some of the material that they would find. And now these numbers come directly from the Citadel's research, Dr. John Weinstein and Hope Wirtz. 63,397 foam cups, plates, and to-go containers. 24,733 plastic bags. 13,022 straws. All told, there's 7 tons of that material out there. All that data comes from the National Beach Sweep River Sweep, organized by DNR and Sea Grant. And it's entirely consistent with my experience in the water. This is a smart ordinance, and it's designed to get after the type of materials that can't be recycled in your blue roll carts and for which there are alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jared Nicholson. I live on St. Margaret Street in Wagner Terrace. I support the ordinance, and I went to the Wagner Terrace Neighborhood Association after I learned that the ordinance had not passed the first round, and everyone agreed that we want this ordinance to pass. I went and called at least 30 different small businesses over this past weekend, and they are all in favor of this ordinance. We ask that Mr. Lewis, you're my 3rd District Councilman member, represent us, represent your people. All other councilmen represent your people, understand that we want this ordinance to pass. Don't listen to the businessmen, listen to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sullivan Hamilton. I'm a server at Stars Restaurant and a core ensemble member of Pure Theater. I would just like to say, I had a whole thing written out, but it's not going to take 45, okay. So I'd just like to say that working in the restaurant industry and seeing cups used even by my employees and then throwing them, actually wiping them out and then putting them back into the container so that they have to use them again, and then I tell them that I am sick and they have to get sick from me because I already cleaned out the cup. But I think we need to get over the plastic bags from living in Burnsdown and cleaning up the water system right there in my pond. I've noticed plastic straws, I've noticed plastic caps, even smaller fibers of plastic as well. And simply just get outside and pick up cloth and a brown paper bag and start cleaning up our own waters. And I think we need to get over the argument about profit, because we do need to come together. This world has come to fight, and we need to love each other.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Kelly Thorvalson, South Carolina Aquarium. Plastic pollution is one of the greatest environmental crises of our time, and luckily the world is waking up to that fact. You heard from me a couple of weeks ago about the frightening increase of sea turtles that are coming into our hospital at the aquarium with plastics, that have ingested plastics in the ocean. And all marine life really are doing it. You heard that from Elena. The thing is, human health and ocean health are intrinsically linked. And the aquarium doesn't just care about marine life and sea turtles. We care about communities. And we are ready, if the city passes this ordinance, to support you, Charleston, the city of Charleston, as we did the library system of Charleston, as well as Beaufort County, and across diverse communities to help distribute reusable bags as much as possible, as well as help people understand the reason for this ban. Thank you. There are also some samples in jars up here of plastics that came from our turtles. If you'd like to take a look at those, you're welcome to. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Francis Marion. I'm sorry, Katie.
One more.
Yes. See, you're out of orders. Okay.
Sorry. Katie Zimmerman, Executive Director of Charleston Moves. I'm here tonight. I'll take off. I've got 2 things to talk about. One is I want to thank you all for the discussion earlier about the budget. That was wonderful to see you all considering things in such a diligent fashion like you always do. I want to really put out a plea for you to add back in the mobility manager to the budget. As you all have heard, Charleston County is leading the state in bike and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. We need a mobility manager to get our safety projects going. It's really vital. So please consider putting that back in the budget. Also, as a citizen, 45 Sycamore Avenue, citizen of Charleston, I want to thank you for considering the plastic ban. Please vote for it. There we go.
Hi, my name is Francis. I'm a 5th generation Charlestonian. I'm a tree hugger. I've got pluff mud in my veins. And I'm not going to say anything new, but I stood here and I waited and I missed my son's basketball tryout so I could look y'all in the eye and ask you to please support the ban. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, Brittany Pavi, or Pav, or Paul, maybe this is Paul. Ryan Cockrell, Alex Collier, Jerry Jennings, and George Hopkins. Okay, so while they're coming down, is Emily Sedzo here?
Please come forward.
Okay, this is, all right, so Emily's.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. Emily Sedzo with the Coastal Conservation League. First off, I want to thank you all for considering the plastics ordinance. I'd like for you to keep in mind that the special interest groups and corporations coming in outside of our community are the very ones supporting preemptive legislation that seeks to take away your rights. Legislative session starts in 42 days, and we fully anticipate seeing preemptive legislation that would prohibit you from addressing plastic pollution here in Charleston. You have an opportunity to make history tonight. We stand with you and we support you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
George Hopkins, West Ashley. Next Tuesday at your Budget Council meeting, you'll be discussing increasing Charleston City workers' wage to $12 an hour. I'm here with a number of folks who think that is totally insufficient. $15 an hour should be the minimum. I know some of you balk at that, but I tell you, in North Charleston, they're already at 13 plus per hour and going to 15 next year. And if the moral and ethical dimensions of this don't appeal to you, remember to retain workers, to keep workers, to reduce turnover, costly turnover, that amount per hour is going to have to keep going up. That's just a reality that I think everyone really needs to face. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Brittany Paul. I live on Alexander Street in Charleston, and I am in support of the plastic ban. I don't have anything else to add other than my support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Cockrell, 932 Ashley Avenue. That's your district, Councilman Lewis, and I work here at 56 Broad. That's your district, Councilman White. I wanted to say plastic is an amazing product, just like lead paint and asbestos. When we banned those, it was a hardship on the painters and homeowners and manufacturers, but I think we can all agree it was necessary. Every molecule of plastic ever made is still here. It breaks down into smaller plastics, but it doesn't go away, and those microplastics have even been found in our oysters. In the last 10 years, we made more plastic than we did in our prior century. Half of it is considered disposable, but how is an indestructible product disposable? Please approve the ordinance and cut off the flow of plastic. Thank you.
Fine.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Alex Collier, grew up in Wagner Terrace, office down 58 Broad Street, and simply put, I am in support of the band, and I ask that you do the same. Thank you.
And a graduate of Berkeley School of Music. Great musician. Yeah. Oh. All right.
Okay. All right. I think this is Rachel Meek, Caroline Beatty, Caroline Broomer, Marto Shedlock, Caitlin Cornwell.
Just come on forward. Whoever gets to the mic first.
Hi, my name is Caroline Beatty. I live on Windermere Boulevard over by Earth Fair, and I'm a sailor in town. I get most of my income and a big part of my fulfillment from being on the water. And over the past year, I've really noticed how plastics pile up, styrofoam too, and charter guests notice it. And I think it's a little bit shameful that we're the #1 city in the country for, a few years running, but yet I've got charter guests asking why there's so much trash at high tide. And I've noticed too that all of the turtles have left the little creeks by the Ashley River Greenway, the West Ashley Greenway that I used to see when I walked the dog, and I'd like for them to come back sometime. So I support the ban. Hope you do too.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Cornwell. I'm a student and resident of West Ashley. I just have 2 points I'd like to address. One is council members, we're running out of time. In a few short weeks, the state is likely to bring before it the preemption bill for a second time. If we don't act tonight, we could very well lose the opportunity to have a say on how we, at the local level, handle plastics in the future. And secondly, I pledge as a student, as do many individuals in this room, to make sure that our businesses are taken care of during this transition and to make sure that no citizen or business faces struggles due to this ban. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Caroline Bradner, I live at 69 Washington Street, and I just want to say that I'm in full support of the plastics ordinance. I have a very hard time walking past plastic trash and leaving it there, so I'm often compelled to pick it up. And on my way to work every day and my way just walking around town, I end up with handfuls of plastic, always single-use plastic, every single time. Also, I want to add that no one wants to put an undue burden on our local businesses or on at-risk communities, people who may not be able to invest in reusable bags or whatever issues that arise. There are many community partners who want to make sure that we bring everyone along with us in this. So I know you guys do too, and I hope you'll support the ban.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm Marla Shedlock. I live at 468 Hugie Street. That's in Council Member Lewis's district. And I think everything has been said here tonight, so I decided to just bring this up and show this to y'all. This is a reusable bag. It's made out of cotton, and it was purchased in the USA, so I could address the gentleman's comments earlier. And as you know, we've got cotton farmers in South Carolina, so let's support reusable bags, let's support our cotton farmers, and let's eliminate plastic. We did a creek cleanup on October 23rd at Newmarket Creek. We also did one on November 12th. The first time on October 24th, we picked up 98 plastic bags. On November 12th, we picked up 173. We were only out there the first time for an hour, and the second time we were out there for about an hour and a half. So we definitely have a plastic problem. And I support the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I need Rob Daniel. His name was crossed out, but then it showed up, so that's Rob. And David Quaid, Conver Locke, Wendy Holtzman, and Alec Cooley.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Rob Daniel. I live at 60 Calhoun Street. I'm in Councilman Mitchell's district. I also work at a marketing office in Councilman Moody's district. And I just wanted to come in support of this ban. I'm a designer for a marketing company, and I can tell you if one of the concerns is that we won't be able to provide reusable bags, or they won't be affordable to everyone. I can tell you as someone who designs for a marketing company that there's a lot of brands out there who want to put their brand on the side of a bag and are willing to help with this initiative. So thank you, and please support this ban.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Alec Cooley. I'm a resident of Mount Pleasant, but I'm here just with somebody with recycling and litter prevention expertise, having worked for the National Office of Keep America Beautiful. Previously, though I want to be clear, I'm here representing myself as an individual. Recycling, I want to make the point, is not a viable alternative for what this is intended to address. The limited opportunities that do exist for recycling, which are valid and should be taken advantage of, are not convenient, and for that reason, very few people actually take advantage of them, and there's not a lot that can really change about that. So we're always going to have this issue. Secondly, I want to point out that by reducing the number of bags that are actually put out into the public, that helps to address a significant issue with actual recycling facilities where bags are contaminated in the residential program.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Connor Locke. I'm a local business owner. I live at 164 Dunneman, and my office is on King Street. And I just want to ask you guys a few questions about what is your value on our seafood, our waterways, our wildlife, our waste services, our landscape, and ultimately all of our consumption. The facts are very accessible and clear. Plastics are a consumption issue. Charleston is in the midst of a very progressive change. Do we want to be leaders or losers on this issue? Let's stand with Folly Beach, Mount Pleasant, and other municipalities as leaders and continue the ban on plastics. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Wendy Holzman from James Island.
You need to speak a little bit louder.
Wendy Holzman from James Island. This is a reusable bag made in the USA, and we're not doing anything new here. 40 countries and over 350 U.S. cities have already instituted plastic bags in addition to the whole state of California. And as one article is entitled, it's been a year since California banned single-use plastic bags and the world didn't end. And the only other thing I want to say in terms of the climate change report that Mayor Tekelberg referenced, plastic bags, because they're made from petroleum and natural gas, which are non-renewable fossil fuel-based resources, which through their extraction and production create greenhouse gases which contribute to global climate change. And one more thing, there are, this Earthwise bag company in California increased the number of U.S. workers employed in the production of its bags by 300%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm David Quick. I live in Mount Pleasant. On Saturday morning, I took my dogs on a walk at the Pitt Street Bridge, and like a lot of you, experienced that astronomical high tide that I think caught us all by surprise. But also, what I noticed was that the wind was blowing across the harbor from Charleston to Mount Pleasant, and lapping up against the bridge were plastic trash, literally lapping up against the bridge. So I took the dogs back home, I came back out, spent the next 2 hours, I picked up a cartload of plastic bags, straws, styrofoam, both in bits of pieces and large containers. Not all from Charleston, but plastics and tides and winds know no boundaries. We're all one community. Support this ban. Other communities have. I really hope you all will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I think this is John Broder, Phyllis Ewing, Olivia Bruno, Barbara Beckenham, Kristen Fredericks, maybe.
Come forward.
Hi, my name is John Brooker. I live in Wagner Terrace in District 6. And I just wanted to urge you to support the plastic bag ban ordinance. I think it's just a common sense measure that will keep our communities clean, our waterways clean and healthy. So I guess the last thing I want to say is just I hope you guys do something that can make us all feel proud tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Phillips.
Phyllis Ewing, 4 Ashley Avenue, and I have a couple things to say. First of all, it's not just the food chain and the fish, it's us who are being flooded. I can't tell you how many plastic bags we have pulled off of drains that are not draining because the plastic bags are there. Secondly, one of the councilmen last time said, well, what difference does it make? I mean, because there's so many plastics. Well, I did some math. I take these bags everywhere. I have about 5 of them. I've been using them for between 15 and 18 years. I'm a single person household, and I figured out that based on the grocery store where they put 3 items in a bag and then they double bag it, this takes up about, what, 6 plastic bags do. And I think over my use of these bags, I've saved 15,000 bags.
15,000 bags. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. We're going to count them. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Olivia Bueno. I live at 19 Brockman Circle. I'm also a leader of the Charleston Surfrider chapter and also a marine educator. And I actually took out 80 6th graders today on a boat. So with Surfrider, we do a bunch of cleanups, and we've all talked about all the different types of debris that we find. But one interesting fact that we actually found is by recording all the different types of trash on Folly Beach, we recorded the trash pre and post their plastic bag ban, and we actually found with all local data an 80% reduction of plastic bags found on Folly since they initiated their plastic bag ban. So if you do put this ordinance in place, we will see a significant reduction of plastics in our environment. So I really hope that you do support this ban. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christian Fredericks. I'm a resident of James Island and a junior at James Island Charter High School. I wanted to come out tonight to support the ban, instead of doing my homework, I might add, to encourage all the council members to vote in favor of this. As a resident of Folly Beach, I'm frequently seeing the plastic bags and the straws. Even if I just go out for a kayak, I end up picking up loads and coolers and just everything. My kayak's loaded down. And I just wanted to see that changed a lot. And I also wanted to offer another perspective. I'm actually a cashier at the Harris Teeter on Folly Beach that only uses paper bags, and I've found that a lot of the cashiers really and the patrons really enjoy the paper bags, and it's easier to pack them, and they will bring them back and they will reuse them. And I'm tired of seeing all this unnecessary garbage in our marshes, even if I just go out for a kayak. Thank you.
So, young man, here's a card that says deserves extra credit.
Awesome. Hello. Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Barbara Beckingham. I live in West Ashley. I'm a professor at the College of Charleston in Geology and Environmental Studies. I've been researching the implications of plastic pollution on aquatic systems for a number of years now, and I've had the great pleasure of working with many students at the College of Charleston, undergraduates and graduate students, also middle school and high school students who have found out of my research interests and have come to me because they are motivated and enthusiastic about working to tackle the wicked problem of plastic pollution. I just might add, in addition to some of the other comments, that it's not just what happens once plastic gets out in our waterways that we have to concern about, it's while plastic is being transported there. So if you walk around downtown, you might notice that many of our storm drains get clogged with plastic pollution, and so that could also help our flooding problems.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay. So Pamela Ferguson, Dylan Schmitz, Louise Brown, Carrie Taylor, and I think this is Carolyn Evans.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Dylan Schmitz. I live on 53 Gibb Street, right downtown. I'm a outdoor photographer and producer, so I see this problem firsthand in all my work wherever I travel, but also here at home. This seems like an easy way to be part of a much larger movement toward combating the global plastic issue. But also somebody who eats out very, very regularly around here in Charleston, I'd rather not be part of the problem and see that we can stop this at its source locally. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Kerry Taylor at 105 Charles Fort Alley, and I'm here with the Charleston Alliance for Fair Employment Cafe, as well as the South Carolina Poor People's Campaign. And I like fish, I like turtles, and I also like human beings, and for that reason, I support the plastics ban, but I also want to applaud the council in their efforts to review the minimum wage for their city workers. We think, however, that looking at anything less than $15 an hour as a minimum is inadequate, and I think you're all aware of that as you're moving forward. We've long argued that a $15 minimum is both an economic good and a moral necessity, as many people in our region are struggling to pay their to meet their basic needs, especially health care. So we'd encourage you to consider a $15 minimum. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brown.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Louise Brown. I'm from Mount Pleasant and Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm with the Poor People Campaign. When I say poor people, I'm talking about firemen, I'm talking about school teachers, I'm talking about garbage collectors, I'm talking about housekeeping, I'm talking about domestic working, I'm talking about McDonald's, Burger King, Hardee's, all these people are working. They're underpaid and overworked. Why? Because you don't respect their position that they got. They're housekeeping because they like it. They keep the restaurant clean, so when you go in there, you'll be able to eat in a decent environment. The food are good. You enjoy the food. Why not give them $15 an hour to work? 50 cents is an assault to the intelligent. Why would you want to do that? They labor hard to make everything possible for us. Why can't we make them a decent pay? Thank you.
Ms. Brown. Yes, ma'am.
Pam Ferguson, I support the plastic ban. I think just as with the smoking ban, we can, in our businesses, adjust to this, and we need to move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Carolyn Evans, James Island resident, here to support the plastics ban. I think we used to, as a culture, we used to do a lot of stupid things. We used to throw trash out the window. We used to drunk drive until the 70s when law enforcement really enforced it. And when we know better, we do better. And we do know better now, so let's do better.
Thank you.
Okay. Emmanuel Ferguson, Justin Fiera, Paula Beatty, maybe, Brad Target, and April McGill.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Ferguson and from West Ashley. I support the plastics ban, but I would also support the city taking a lead role in making sure those communities that depend on plastic bags have an adequate substitute. The city needs to make sure they have a lead role in that, because the time is now to ban these plastic bags. Don't do it later. The time is now to look out for these communities. Do not push them to the side. They elected you to look out for them. They can't be here because they're at work. They can't be here because they're taking the bus, which the Carter routes are starting to diminish, because I used to take the bus. They need, well, I take that back, Mr. Seekins. One of my routes was diminished. I'm sorry. Carter's actually doing very well. I'll send you a bill. But in all seriousness, before we look into a plastic bag, while we look into a plastic bag bill, we need to make sure we take care of those communities that depend on them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Paula Brady, 12 George Street. I'm not going to get cut off here. So, how many people like Charleston being the #1 travel city in Condé Nast? Raise your hand. How many people like us being the #1 city for the Travel and Leisure magazine? How many people like living here? In order to do that, as the waterkeeper said, we need to fix the sewerage, right, and drainage problem to avoid flooding. Tourists don't like driving through it or walking through it, neither do we. So what we have is this. We have to fix that. 3/4 of the plastics that are produced, 18 trillion since the 1950s, are non-biodegradable. That's what our waterkeeper is seeing. The Philippines, our close neighbor, if we're all global, our close Philippine neighbors found in 2009 that their sewage and water drainage problems were due to plastics that were clogging. So what they did, they banned them. They put their money not to cleaning up the plastics, but they put it towards fixing their sewage and drainage problems. Let's do the same. Let's vote 12-0. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm April McGill. I'm a James Island resident, an architect, and the owner of my business. I'm also a professor at the American College of Building Arts. For all of these reasons, I support the ban. Thank you, Council, for considering this ordinance. I think it's a move in the right direction. I think it's low-hanging fruit. I think it's something easy. We have solutions. It's where we have to go. And just like with the smoking ban, businesses adapted, people adapted. Now we can't even remember what it was like to sit in a smoky restaurant. And we have to look at long-term solutions for the health of our society, and not just initial cost of time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
My name's Brad Taggart. I'm from Johns Island. I'm here to say that I am deeply opposed to the bag ban. I say that because the last 3 years I've lived in Germany. Germany is about 10 to 20 years ahead of this place as far as banning things for environmental purposes. And let me just tell you, it doesn't work out well. It really doesn't. It finds a way to negatively influence every part of your life. It just keeps on going. They just keep on banning. And just remember that this is not the last ban. This is the first ban. Once this passes, it's going to be on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And you can bet that eventually it's going to get to something that you care more about than plastic bags. So I ask you to please don't pass the ban.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Justin Ferreira, CEO of the Sane Group, member of Surfrider, huge capitalist and supporter of the plastic bag ban. I grew up fishing with my granddad. He was a blue-collar welder, but he was also an environmentalist. He grew all his own crops, caught all the fish we ate, and used the same thermos for 30 years. He instilled in me a work ethic that if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. That's capitalism. But at the same time, we can't irreparably harm our ecosystem and all the fish, or we're all out of luck. My grandfather took me sane fishing, and I named my company after him. Because in life, business, and politics, it takes a variety of partners holding the net together. Our city's future needs your partnership tonight as you cast your vote, so we can all continue to cast our literal and economic nets together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did we miss anybody? All right. Oh, we have one lady. Did you sign up?
Sorry. I'm Misty. I live on Gordon Street in Wagner Terrace, and I'm...
What's her name?
Misty Lister.
Misty Lister.
Okay.
And I'm for the ban. I'm a stand-up paddleboard coach here in town, and I'm on the water a lot, and I see a ton of plastic bags. I come back into the shore, and I have a lot of plastic on my board, and it's just, it's disgusting. And I also want to speak to the affordability of it all. My mom lives on a fixed income of $650 a month, and she takes her reusable bags everywhere she goes. So I think that you can afford it.
Thank you. We're going to take one more. Yes, sir.
Last but not least, my name is Jason Sacker, and I'm a resident of North Central, as well as District 3, Mr. Lewis. And I also am a small business owner with 2 restaurants, one on Spring Street. I realize that this is something we have to get done. We could become the largest city in the state of South Carolina to pass this. It's time to lead. Number 1, as a small business owner, I am for the ban, but I do have some concerns. Enforcement. It's a great ordinance. How are we going to enforce it? Number 2, what are the unintended consequences for our small business owners, in particular restaurants that have sales of $500,000 or less per year? Number 3, how will this change the buying habits of our customers? Instead of purchasing small single bags, they're going to be purchasing other bags. Number 4, we have to work with the local grocery stores to ensure that their customers have the means. And lastly, I just want to say, it's time for the city of Charleston to lead on this, and it's time for District 3 to take a lead on this, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, that's the end of our citizens' participation period. Thank you all for being here tonight and sharing with us your thoughts and comments. So next is our Petitions and Communications. We just have one appointment of Keith Benjamin to the Charleston County Transportation Committee. We have a motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our council committee report. First is Committee on Community Development, Councilmember Mitchell, who he'll be right back.
Councilmember Jackson, she chaired the meeting last time. He chaired the last meeting.
Okay. Do you want me to come back to you?
Yeah.
I'll come right back to you. Our next committee meeting is Committee on Traffic and Transportation. Councilmember Seekings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Gregory. The Committee on Traffic and Transportation met yesterday at 4 o'clock. We had a report from the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Just for those of you who are here tonight, know that that is now a very active committee. The report was given by Matt Moldenauer, who's our co-chair. There's a lot going on, so please get involved. We also had a report on the Just Ride Better Bike Share Partnership Grant Program, which is a grant program that brings bike share to underserved communities around the city, and it has been wildly successful. We've got bikes in places you wouldn't expect to see bike share. The cost, I think, Katie, is $5 to be a member for the year, and we can track because they're GPS-based bikes. They are getting used in great numbers, so it's been a huge success, that grant. I want to just thank our Director of Traffic and Transportation, Mr. Benjamin, and those who've been involved in this, Gotcha Bikes, who runs our bike share. That has been terrific. We had 2 items that need approval from this body. First was the turning of Raffer's Alley to one-way. Raffer's Alley goes north off of Market Street towards Ginyard Street. It is now currently very narrow 2-way. The developer of that area is actually going to make some improvements on that street, going to put a sidewalk in. It really doesn't have room for 2 ways worth of cars. It's going to run north off of Market. That was approved unanimously. The second was the partial one-way of Hudson Street between King and Meeting Street, which will be the access to the underground parking for the Bennett Hotel when it opens sometime in January or February. And we will have one-way traffic from King towards Meeting to the access point of the underground parking, which is about 175 yards into Hudson Street. All of the property owners on that street are the same person, so they've all asked for this. It actually will work. So again, that was also approved unanimously, and I would ask support of this council and make such a motion. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Councilmember Gregory.
Yes, sir.
On 2A, Pedestrian Advisory Committee, did that committee take a position on any of the requests from the Transportation Department, more specifically the mobility position?
Are you talking about on the budget? Yes. The answer is no, because it was not presented with the budget at our last meeting.
So they didn't take a position. The next question is, where is the Transportation Committee on the implementation of the transportation plan that this body approved?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
If I'm not mistaken, the Transportation Director provided this body with a plan, okay, that we voted on as a body. And my question is, what is the committee's position on the implementation of that plan?
So you're talking about the citywide transportation plan? That was presented to us, I don't know if Mr. Benjamin is still here. When did you present that to us? It was some number of months ago, and we adopted it unanimously, and I think it has become now, we brought it to council for adoption of the report when it was brought to council, if I'm not mistaken.
Implementation.
Well, that, well, the good news is what we're doing is we're giving it right here to our very capable director to go and implement it, because we've given him some of the tools to do it, not all of them, because some of it comes in our budget process, as you know.
Is it an unfunded mandate, however?
Not all of it, but go ahead, Mr. Benjamin, we can.
So three things really quickly. One, with regards to the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, in the documentation that was provided to the committee members was a memo from the committee that actually had some priorities in there, which did co-sign the multimodal manager, and then also implementation of pieces of the People Pedal Plan, and then the opportunity to begin prioritization to bring to the TNT committee for approval from there. In regards to the CTP, when I presented to you all in July, one of the things that I mentioned to you was about the coordination that I've been adamant about with county and state for particular projects. So when I came to you, I came with also implementation opportunities as well as things we were already moving forward on. So when I stood there in July, we had already gotten approval on Applemarm Road being improved, Lockwood and Bufane, over near off of Folly Road, some improvements there for biking and walking as well. So a number of things because of the coordination through the sales tax that we had prioritized. Other pieces that it's an addendum of the long-range transportation plan, which Catherine Basha, the planning director of the COG, is going to be presenting to the TNT committee later in December. Every project prioritized in the CTP is in the regional long-range transportation plan as a priority for both state and federal funding. So that was a big part of why it was important for us to approve that. I put my priorities forward with regards to the budget for this year, specifically with regards to low-hanging fruit that I feel like we can accomplish both around bike and pedestrian as well as with transit.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you very much. Okay, so on the floor, we have approval of the committee report, along with the approval of Rayford's Alley and Hudson Street.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I did forget something. I think. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Councilmember Waring.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, the chairman of TNT was kind enough to allow me a few seconds at committee meeting yesterday. We had a hearty discussion around funding bike and pedestrian paths, in particular in areas where the city already owns an 8 to 10 foot easement. In other words, no properties would have to be bought. We already have the right to do that. Councilman Moody, maybe among others, also mentioned about, I think, the town of Mount Pleasant putting up monies and getting additional projects matched or funded through the county. We're in the budget process. And I know how tough the budget process is, we all do. We got the gray hairs to show it. How do we convert that to action steps? So somewhere between now and hopefully December 4th, if we were to put aside some monies to create bike and pedestrian paths that could be matched with the county to put those easements, to put those bike and pedestrian pathways in easements that are already in control by the city of Charleston, I think it would be a good step forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you share with me what easements you're
Oh yeah, if you were to go down, a number of them. If you were to go down Magnolia Road from the restaurant, from Gerald's, basically Alderlaw or whatever, all the way to the Greenway, there are about 8 to 10 feet worth of sidewalk and easements between the road ending and the sidewalk beginning that could connect you to the bikeway. The bikeway could then take you, obviously, to St. Andrews Boulevard or to Walpole Road.
So that's already planned for improvement and existing.
Well, if it is, I didn't know about that. You mean?
Bikeway, yeah.
Yeah, the bikeway is the bikeway, I'm sorry, but I mean getting from the bikeway, getting from Albemarle, if you will, to, not Albemarle, but Avondale, all the way to the bikeway on Magnolia Road is what I'm talking about.
I see.
We already have 8 to 10 feet there. And once you connect on the bikeway, you can go all the way down to Walpole Road, of course. And if you look down, if you ride down Walpole Road, we have almost 8 to 10 feet between sidewalks and easements.
That one is a project.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's already.
So we already have, we have the money for
Magnolia is not, but from the end of the Greenway, the bikeway to the Greenway going down Wapu Road, that's a funded project that is really started already, hadn't it? It's about to start. Yeah, but they're going to add one on the other side.
No, I guess my point is it going to come from, will it connect from Savannah all the way to Sam Rittenberg?
No.
I think we have, if we were to look, I think you would see public access or public easements between the county and the city. I mean, all that's not in the city, obviously. 8 to 10 feet between public easement and sidewalks that can pretty much get you from Sam Rittenberg on Walpole Road all the way to 17. So you'd almost have an inner loop there. And the third area we spoke about was off Old Town Road, which again, we already have 8 to 10 feet of easement that you could put from pretty much West Pawnee almost all the way down to, help me out, Peter, all the way down to Donahue.
Right.
And those are properties within the county and city that we don't have to go out and obtain. And if we had some monies to match, we potentially could have an exponential effect. Thank you.
Hear you.
And just along that same point, if we got this meeting on December the 5th about the redesign of Highway 61, Old Town Road and Sam Rittenberg, so part of that, I think, is including this pedestrian and bicycle roadway would be incorporated in some of those designs. So connectivity is a huge part of those designs on Old Town Road.
And lastly, I brought up again, we need, I guess, is Mr. Lindsay here? We spoke a number of months ago about amending the allowed use for religious organizations to be able to use property that they already own for parking. Not parking to rent as a business, but parking for the parishioners to park on. And I have not seen, we have not seen that amendment come forward to council to be approved. So that's just something that if we can get that on the to-do list in front of us, I'd be appreciative.
Right. I asked Mr. Lindsay about that recently. I guess we'll go ahead and address it if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
No. Do you have a response on that?
I noted, and Mr. Mayor did bring that up, and I checked in with staff. We're going to bring that back to you as soon as possible.
All right. Terrific. So, back to traffic and transportation.
Well, I mean, as you can see, especially when it comes to mobility and bike ped issues, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of opportunity out there. But I do want to just double back on the bike ped committee, and my memory was jogged about the meeting yesterday. We've had a lot between then and now, but the bike ped committee has set a list of priorities that they're going to bring forward, sort of 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, to make it manageable for us as a council and as a city to implement some things that are, again, people call it low-hanging fruit, but things that are obvious and right in front of you that we just haven't done. And Councilmember Waring, when he came yesterday, really pointed out some that are literally right there in front of us. Another one was in our presentation. If you go to the Carta stop right there in front of the Citadel Mall, it's a very active stop. There is all sorts of people getting on and off the bus. There's a big fat right-of-way right behind it along the road. There's no sidewalk. So people can't get from where they live a quarter mile, a half a mile, 3/4 a mile away to that bus stop, which is one of our most active bus stops in the system. So connectivity, getting people around, getting through that last mile, all of those things are things that we really need to look at on the micro scale and start implementing, and it will really make a huge difference in the lives of our citizens. So that was kind of the theme of yesterday, for sure.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Shade, then Moody.
Just a question on the Hudson Street for clarification. So it's going to become one way off of King to...
Right. So as you know, Hudson Street has now been closed for a couple of years. They've done this Bennett project, and they built parking underneath the building. And the access point to that parking is off of Hudson Street. And so they've done some traffic calculations, and we did actually ask why this hadn't come a little bit earlier to us, but it didn't. So the way to access it in and out is off of King, so you'll be going one way towards Meeting off of King. And then the exit point will then be Meeting, so you'll have a big loop going there.
So come down Meeting Street, so it'll still be two-way.
Yes, you can get to that underground parking from both King and Meeting Street. It will not be one way the entire way, just from King to the entry point to the underground parking.
Gotcha. Councilmember Moody?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Councilmember Waring was saying about these sidewalks, is that a lot of these sidewalks are done by the county with county funds, and there's a program, and we have to apply to get these sidewalks done. And what we're really saying here, and we probably don't have any money in this budget right now. We've pretty well gone as far as we can go with that. But between now and June 30th, if we have a surplus, if we have any funds left over, we need to, as we make these applications, we need to decide or make these applications more meaningful by putting some dollars with the application. And not just say we want a sidewalk A, B, and C, but we want a sidewalk A. It connects this bus stop to this greenway, and finally, here's some money to help pay for it, or we have some money here to have some skin in the game. It makes our projects float up to the top a little bit quicker, and it makes them get done a lot of things.
Well, I think that's an excellent point, and mission-based applications is a very good idea. Also, tonight, we, as you know, appointed Mr. Benjamin to the CTC, who will then be there as our contact point on the committee. So we need to just make sure we coordinate between planning, traffic and transportation, and then the newly formed public services department, so we all are on the same page when it comes to sidewalks, because sidewalks is a place we can make huge progress, and we haven't. So there'll be a lot of work for Mr. Benjamin to do as we take that to them.
And the last point I want to make, Mr. Waring came to our TNT committee and made a lot of demands. And one of the demands that he made of the committee was that we need to get something done on this city council members parking around the thing. Well, that was last night at 4 o'clock. Tonight, every city council member has now got their parking pass where we can put it. So I want to put the public on notice. If you see Councilmember Bill Moody parked, he better be on city business when this is hanging on his car.
That's right.
And I just warn everybody else, don't use this personally. This is for city council business, okay? Yeah, the district number is on the card, so public knows. If they see Bill Moody's District 11, he better be on city business and not having dinner at a restaurant somewhere with his wife.
Right. Anyway, Mr. Mayor, I do think we need a vote on the two one-ways.
We're going to get to that eventually.
I just want to make sure we don't forget about that. If not,
I hadn't forgotten yet.
Not when the Hotel Bennett opens
but
up.
But I was going to comment that this is probably the most pervasive Traffic and Transportation Committee report I've ever heard. Well, Councilmember Jackson.
The time has passed.
The time has passed. All right. So any other comments or questions?
That's it.
Okay. All in favor of the report and the two ways or one-way conversions, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And those points are all very well taken. Next is our Committee on Public Works and Utilities. Councilmember Waring.
No, I've got a question. Bill, I didn't get lost in my seat. Public Works and Community Councilmember.
Councilmember.
Sidewalk along Maple Street. Could you just explain that one? Is your report to,
yeah, this is a part of Maple Street that dead ends down there. Mm-hmm. And as it is being repaired, you know how the state doesn't keep the maintenance, we have to accept the future maintenance on it. That's what this is.
Okay. Thank you.
And then didn't you promise us more detailed report on the low battery presentation?
We did.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, we had a very good meeting, Mr. Mayor and council on the, we had a presentation done on the repairs that will be done. It starts at down by the Coast Guard Station, Tradd Street, and is working toward the curve. The first phase, I believe, is about $9 million. The total project is roughly about 50 or so million dollars. So there's been some things that's been cut up. But I'm telling you, if you see the proposal, maybe we get a chance to do it at another meeting. It's very impressive what is being proposed. So it passed unanimous, a good hearty discussion, and I recommend approval to this council.
Great.
Second, Mitchell. Who was the next?
Okay. Councilmember Seeking.
Just very briefly, if I can, just to add on to what Councilmember Waring described on the low battery project, what we approved tonight at Ways and Means was the final design for that project. It will go out to bid at the beginning of January. The estimate for the first segment is just that, but the bid will come in probably right around there. That project is going to be done in segments, and the first segment is about 1/7 to 1/6 of the total length of the project. 880 feet or so, 4,800, and it'll start at the Coast Guard Station and head toward White Point Gardens. It will accelerate over time, but it's going to be done in segments. So just for those of you who live along there, probably first segment will begin in the first or second quarter of 2019, now that I think we've got all the approvals and the funding.
And we did see pictures of it, and I'm telling you, it really needs to be done.
Ooh.
Yes, sir.
It's bad.
One more question, one more thing, Mr. Chairman. Can we get an update on where we at with Hughes East Street and when we can expect a contract to come before this council to get the work started? Can you get that?
Well, that wasn't part of the report.
I know I said on your next committee.
Oh, next committee. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sure.
We put that on the agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Where we started construction on the wall, what's the advantage of starting the Coast Guard station as opposed to
I can answer that. Well, because that part of the wall is the most deteriorated is the first answer. It's also the least complicated in terms of engineering, so we will get some benefit of the learning of what's down there, because that wall's now been in place for 100 years. So first and foremost, it is the most challenged in terms of its current condition. And secondly, it will allow for a steep learning curve and some dollar savings as we go along the wall to the more complicated side. And just so everyone knows, it will ultimately be about the same height as the high battery.
That's right.
It's going to be raised about 2.5 feet.
That's right. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, our Committee on Ways and Means.
Yeah,
We got to go. We got to go back to community development.
I was trying to say that.
I was going to come back to you at the end before we, when we're going to save the best for last.
Yeah,
Next is Committee on Ways and Means. Councilmember White. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, best for last, Committee on Community Development. Councilmember Mitchell.
No, I'm going to refer to Councilmember Jackson. She handled that.
Councilmember Jackson.
I did preside over the meeting in Councilmember Mitchell's absence. And I do apologize for not being prepared with my notes from the meeting, so I'm going to have to call on my committee colleagues to help me reconstruct, but that we had 3 items of new business that were all presented by Ms. Janice Shaw Johnson, and the first one is a report that was begun this summer by our Bloomberg fellow, and I don't have that.
Natasha Hicks.
Natasha.
Is her name.
Natasha Hicks, and she presented it. She came back to Charleston. She's now working in Boston, but she came back and provided us with the first look at the format for this 5-year strategic plan for housing for Charleston. And it's a very ambitious undertaking. She's got an amazing set of, I think, issues and initiatives that she's begun to flesh out. She held a lot of stakeholder meetings this summer and surveys of critical areas of need in the city. And now she is going to be under contract to come and go from Charleston and do a lot of work virtually over the next 3 or 4 months to put more meat on the bones of this report and then bring it back to the council for any implementation decisions that we would be asked to make. The first one that we did discuss at length at the committee, and we ended up voting on a recommendation to the whole council in consideration of this coming year's budget, was to establish a new position that would essentially, I don't think we saw an actual position description title. Ms. Johnson is creating the position description in more detail as we speak, but I called it the Housing Initiatives Director, Coordinator for the Department of Housing. And so we did vote as a committee to favorably recommend such a position to the whole council in consideration of this year's budget. And we're waiting for more detail. I don't know if that's come to the mayor's office yet, but I think it will be something that maybe we can consider later in the year. The one that I really don't remember talking about is the agreement on workforce housing, so I need to call on my colleagues. Either that or it was deferred. Is she with us this evening?
Is Ms. Johnson here?
While she's
Gianna?
coming forward, we did certify that we have an abandoned building site at 20 Addison Street, and that is recommended for first reading to the council to resolve that certification for this property located at 20 Addison Street, property number 46316020013, as an abandoned building under the section of law that declares it to have been abandoned for a minimum of 5 years under the South Carolina Code. So I would ask the
That's the main one I was concerned on, because we have to vote tonight on that one. I didn't want.
Yeah, we have to vote on that resolution.
That's correct.
Declaring the property abandoned.
Collect our...
So I would make a motion that we vote favorably for that resolution.
Second.
So help our collective memories on agreement to provide workforce housing.
Yes, that was the PUD overture agreement that Chip McQueenie presented to the City Committee of City Council, and it basically finalized the percentage of workforce housing that would be available, rental workforce housing, within that agreement. That agreement was actually approved by council in 2017, I believe, and so this was basically bringing it back to finalize the specifics relative to the percentage of affordable housing. And I see Susan nodding.
Yes,
there may be a few other.
Chip left a few notes for me about this. He's in Disney World, I guess, right now.
Good for him.
Much rather be here, but no. Anyway, it is asking your authorization to let the mayor enter into an agreement for workforce housing at the Overture West Ashley development. It's a 6.15 acre planned a PUD, and according to the PUD, the developer it's a 20-year term for workforce housing. There will be 10 units at 80% AMI, 20 units at 120% AMI, and they're likely to be rental units. And the rent will be capped at 30% of the AMI. And the committee approved the agreement, or the authorization for the mayor to enter into the agreement, which is required by the PUD on November 14th.
So basically,
so does the council need to take action?
We
yes,
do.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into the workforce housing agreement, which is a requirement of the PUD that was previously approved by council back actually on December 20th, 2016.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So with a resolution to accept the committee report, we'll approve the agreement just mentioned and also the certification of 20 Addison Street as an abandoned building.
Yeah, it's not a first reading, it's actually a resolution.
It's just an approval.
It's just an approval, right.
Any discussion? All in favor of all that, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So now we're done with our committee reports and we go up to bills for second reading. First up is our plastic ban. And we have a motion to approve and a second. We did have some modifications as requested by council. We looked at all those things that we talked about 2 weeks ago, and I think Ms. McCain is going to give us a little report to tell us what's different in our version now as opposed to what we had originally presented to you at first reading based upon y'all's request.
Hi everyone. I'm sure you are ready to stop talking about plastic bags, right? But I just wanted to go over really quickly the recent changes and requests that you all had at our last meeting. So you asked us to reach out to the grocery stores, so Mark and I went out and hit the streets, and we discovered we actually got great support from grocery stores. We talked to the Harris Teeter on the peninsula and the Food Line on the peninsula and the Bilo on James Island. They have all experienced this before. They've done it in other jurisdictions. They know what to do. They're ready to comply. They're even willing to talk to us about donating resources to a reusable bag campaign. So they're very on board. They also all said that they will all provide an alternative bag that is free for anyone who forgets their bag. So important step. Okay, so overview of recent amendments is what that actually says. So there were 5 big changes. Basically, we clarified the exemption review process. So we had a discussion about changing the committee, and now we have the committee actually, any appeals for requests for exemptions will go to the new public service director or their designee, and then if there are any appeals, that would go to the Public Works Committee, which, as you know, encompasses about half of you all. So you would have a say in anyone requesting an appeal if desired. So then we also added some clarification language to that appeal process, and both of these items were really to help businesses streamline this process, so it is not lengthy and enduring for them, that they can go through this fast. So we think that will help the exemption review process. We also were able to reduce an exemption, so we were able to take it away. We made sure egg cartons were listed in there because that was very important to a local grocer, we heard. And we were able to drop an exemption, which was important to you all and very important to folks who took our survey. We added a piece about encouraging educational signage in stores to help remind people that it's good to reduce, reuse, and recycle, and to remember their reusable bag. It's not required, but it's just encouraged, so it's not an added requirement. And then we altered the definition of reusable bag just to strengthen it so nobody could take advantage of the thinness of the reusable bag, which we've seen in some jurisdictions, including Beaufort. So we just kind of tightened up that verbiage to be more consistent with other municipalities who have had the most success. And then we clarified the effective date. So it still is 1 year and a couple days now, so we have December 1st in there. And one of the reasons we did this is to tighten up the effective date language. So if there was something that happened at the state level, the ordinance actually goes into effect as soon as you would pass second and third reading instead of a year from now. It's just the enforcement would go into effect a year from now. And it's nice and clear, December 1st now. You also asked us to look into Charleston water system, so we reached out to them. They said the wipes are actually their biggest issue, clogging their systems and machinery, but the plastic bags can get mixed in with the wipes, they can attach to the machinery, and it does contribute to shutdowns and maintenance costs. We also checked in with Charleston County Recycling. They said, as we've said, they don't accept these bags because they actually jam their equipment. Plastic bags need very specific conveyors and rotors to make them work, and most municipalities don't have this infrastructure. So when these bags get stuck, they actually have to stop the process. The machines stop, and they have to hand pluck these bags, which can result in over an hour of downtime a day, causing major delays. We've heard a few people say they've seen bags over storm drains. This is happening. So obviously when the bag's covering an inlet or entering our stormwater system, it is reducing drainage flow and reducing the effectiveness of our stormwater infrastructure. We talked a lot about recycling. Recycling's great, but it's just not enough. The products that we're trying to ban are not accepted in our blue roll carts, as we've said. And also, I think there needs to be a nod that when you recycle plastic and you remanufacture it, it doesn't recycle endlessly like aluminum or glass does. You can't just keep reproducing the same product. So when you recycle plastic, it's often called downcycling, because usually you'll take like a plastic bottle and turn it into something lower, maybe like a pillow fiber. And at what point do we recycle pillows? So plastic, really, when you recycle it, all you're really doing is kicking the can down the road and just delaying the disposal of it. Litter enforcement is not enough. These bags fly around. This is a picture of a full trash can at a gas station I saw just yesterday, and here's a picture of a truck that just has all kinds of loose materials. Now, both of this is illegal, but it's really hard. It's hard to enforce litter laws to begin with, never mind when it's unintentional littering. These bags just fly. Here's a picture of plastic bags caught in the grasses along Morrison Drive. It's tough to see, but if anyone was out driving during Hurricane Florence, there were bags flying everywhere. They're out. So as soon as the wind gust comes, the rain comes, that's when they move into our waterways. So these bags are just waiting to be victims. Education and cleanups, they're great, but they're also just not enough. We have so many partners that are already doing wonderful things, and they really need policy to be attached to it. So the good thing is that, and I haven't listed them all here, but the good thing is that these partners are willing to help us. They're willing to work with us and collaborate. So a lot of them have offered resources. They've volunteered to donate bags. They've volunteered to donate money to a campaign. So if we can use their partnerships and their expertise in tandem with, grant opportunities that partners with this policy that you're all considering tonight, this could really help make a difference. The program for transformation would also be a huge community-driven effort. I've spoken with a few of you who have expressed interest in being involved and making sure we reach the right community base, making sure we get the right reusable bag. Maybe it's not one, maybe there's a variety of them. So we really want to engage the community and see what they would like. So as I mentioned, this is a year transition. There's all kinds of resources being offered. We're pursuing resources, we're pursuing grants, and at the end of the day, there's also that opportunity to request either exemptions for specific products or exemptions just for the whole business. If a business experiences a hardship, we don't want that to happen. We want them to be able to apply for a hardship and be excused from this while we help them figure out what's going on in the process. And you'll have a say in that since it comes to you. I showed this map last time about the nearby actions. Sullivan's has recently passed their ban, so now Charleston, City of Charleston is really one of the major players left for protecting Charleston Harbor. And finally, I'll leave you with this. We left our survey up since our last council meeting. We've actually received more responses, and they've all been positive, so our percentage has increased. We've heard from over 800 people just in this survey in the last 3 weeks. And then, of course, you have the 2016 survey when we heard from about 5,000 people. And everyone is telling us that they're supportive of this. They want that. They might want it for different reasons. Some people are saying they really want it for livability. Some people really want to protect the environment and wildlife. Some people really want to protect our tourism economy. They know we're really dependent on it, especially businesses who are dependent on it. Think of like restaurants and water sports. And finally, human health, which is cut off on the top right, but is one of the really big driving factors that people are sharing with me that is really important to them. We don't know what plastics are doing to us, but we know they're in us. So I will leave you with that, and if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them.
All right. Councilmember Gregory.
Prior to your just recently reaching out.
Councilmember, please use your mic.
Prior to your just recently reaching out to industries such as grocery stores, et cetera, that's been ongoing as a part of the Sustainability Committee. So it's not as though this is something that we're just throwing on the public. The public has had an opportunity, including the industry, for over a year or so, to provide us with comments on this ordinance. Am I correct?
Yes, we've been talking about it for 3 years.
Thank you.
Councilmember White.
The list of folks that you had up there, different groups that are interested in this. Have you all, in working collectively with the grocery stores and others, considered getting those groups to go out and purchase in bulk these reusable bags, giving them to the grocery stores, and then working, as everybody here has come in here, has obviously got a lot of passion and energy and time behind this, and working collectively with the grocers to encourage the use? And the reason I ask that is it's sort of it gets to the same end, but as I said last time, this is a behavioral change, and so no one's being given an alternative that I'm aware of at this point, but we're going to legislate, or the intention is to legislate behavior. I'm just curious if we've actually taken the approach of the carrot as opposed to the stick. I'm just curious.
Yes, bulk purchasing is something that all those organizations are talking about. We are now talking about, I mean, the Restaurant Association is thinking about it, and I think the question comes down to who takes ownership of it. And I think during our one-year transition, that's when we can have discussions and collaborate to try to figure out who could own this, who could manage bulk purchasing, who could, and maybe that is also paired with the grant. So I think it's a great discussion that everyone is really excited about, and businesses really seemed open to it, and so did residents in the survey.
But to date, we haven't done anything. Proactively, that hasn't occurred yet.
We have not started a program, no.
Councilmember Shea, but it's a great idea.
Would you mind going back to that slide that you showed us with the recyclable part, in which you talked about coming down to the lowest denominator, I think? Yeah, this slide. So a lot of talk about recycling plastics. So if you can clarify this for us a little bit more. So plastic can be turned into something else, right?
More plastic?
Which turns into more plastic.
Yes.
A different use.
But it never goes away.
It never goes away, yes.
And so you were showing the items up there that some of these things can be recycled into plastic, but it comes back into plastic, which then stays with the environment regardless, at some point. Is that right?
Yes. When you reheat the plastic to reuse it, it degrades every time. So at some point, you can't reuse it anymore. And that's when you make it into products that you know you're not going to recycle anyway, like rugs and pillows and things like that.
Councilmember Shealy.
Sorry, a couple questions on some of the changes. I know we've, with the Resiliency Committee, you've got a representative from MUSC, the Chamber, SCANA, you've got a good group of people. What was the thought process in taking that appeal away from the committee?
That was a request of council at the last meeting, because it wasn't an official body of council.
Okay. All right. One other question. I got a call last week from a restaurant owner that's actually in support of all of this and turning this over. He said his issue is that his issue is he buys in bulk some of his stuff and he stores it, and it's multiple months that he does this. What I'm concerned about with the December 1st date is if for some reason this doesn't pass or doesn't come along, if this gets delayed down the road, that may cause a problem for some restaurants because they may not have a year. Now, if it passes, that's fine, if this passes tonight. But I'm concerned for that restaurant owner not having enough time that may buy in bulk to save money and doesn't have time to replace what they have. So
we're not going to enforce for a year, and then if a business still has a big inventory and wants to apply for another year extension, they could do that.
So they could get up to 2 years.
If somebody's got more than a 2-year supply right now, I'd be surprised,
but we've changed the year. They no longer make. What I'm saying is, if this doesn't pass tonight, that restaurant owner may not have a year because we changed it in here. Let's see. Did we not change it?
We changed it to December 1st.
December 1st.
Right.
So if this were to not pass tonight, They don't have a year.
I think we could always change the date if you decided to defer it.
Okay.
So it doesn't pass tonight, we could change the date. Councilmember Griffin.
I know this might seem kind of ridiculous, but if I was a business owner, it would make a lot more sense if I knew that the enforcement date was like January 1st, 2019 or 2020. I don't understand why we would have it December 1st. I understand you were going for a year, but it just makes more sense that, the fiscal year starts, a new year starts. It makes more sense, I think, if you're going to pass it, to have it start on January 1st so that everybody's got a fresh state of mind with the new year.
I think the answer is it's a little preemptive in a way. We want to avoid any conflict with the state legislature putting in place a preemption against us having a ban.
No, but I'm saying just the date on here, the enforcement date. It would make more sense, I think, to start it at the beginning of the year, to start it in December.
If I can just address that, the mayor's right. We changed the effective date of the ordinance to be upon ratification with the hope that that would avoid a preemption issue down the road. But we thought the wise part, and this is you can certainly amend this, the idea was to give some period of time so that the businesses could come into compliance with the ordinance before we started enforcing it. So if they needed additional months to get their bags in their stores, or to take other action to inform their customers so that we could distribute bags, there would be time there. There's nothing that would prevent somebody from coming into compliance immediately.
I think I poorly phrased what I was trying to say. What I'm saying is I would like us to add one more month to this date and start it on January 1st, 2020 as enforcement. Enforcement, not the passing of it, just the enforcement. I think that makes more sense, and it gives us a good, a good marketing tool to say, hey, 2020, January 1st, that's it. I just think it makes more sense.
That's up to, that's your choice. I think we can change it to that.
That can be amended. I think the December 1st decision was just trying to figure out a firm date that would be about a year out from now instead of making it November 27th of next year. It just made more sense to make it December 1st, but I also agree it might make more sense to make it January 1st of the following year. So,
how about we agree in the first month next December to give them a warning ticket? Councilmember White.
This ordinance, if I recall, was modeled after Mount Pleasant. Is that correct?
Yes, Mount Pleasant and Folly.
So we made some changes.
And living on Daniel Island, coming back and forth in the city, I shop a fair amount in Mount Pleasant. I'm pretty certain every time I go to the grocery store, they're still using plastic bags. So what was the difference? Has it just not been implemented?
It's just, so their ban has passed, but they have a grace period also, so it's not in place yet.
How long is their grace period?
I believe it's a year.
Same thing?
Yes.
Gotcha.
But they passed theirs a few months ago, so they're going to start before we do enforce it.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Lewis.
Who's going to do the enforcement?
I think Councilmember Seekings made a very good point that it'll be kind of self-enforced. I don't view us sending out environmental officers or anything like that. Somebody's going to go be in a store, such and such store has plastic bags. It'll get self-reported, and we'll send livability and or police to be able to do a citation.
And then who's going? If you give me a citation, where do I pay it?
Livability court.
So why is the court not overseeing this and not a committee to oversee if somebody violates the ordinance? I think
that was for the exemptions.
I think we're worrying about the state. We're worrying about what other municipalities do. We're not thinking about this thing, working with the other businesses, working with industry, the grocery association industries and those to come up with some ways to make sure that either much the consumers get what they need to get. We're worried about what the state's going to do, what the other person can do, and write our own ordinance, I think, to please us and to do what we think is right and to look out for the betterment of all citizens, not just maybe out 100 and something citizens that live in this city. Maybe 10,000 if it ain't that much. And most people out of Sullivan's Island and Mount Pleasant and Kiowa come in and tell us, well, we need to pass this ordinance. This ordinance needs to be thought forward and be passed by the people to represent the people of the city and not being persuaded by the majority of people that don't even live in this city.
Well, I certainly hear you, but I do respectfully believe this ordinance.
I think we need to defer this ordinance and just study it a little more. We made some changes, and I'm sure there could still be some more changes made to it.
We can always.
But what the state's going to do next year? I mean, I'm not worried about what the state's going to do. I'm worried about what we need to do to make sure that I'm not saying that the environment is not being harmed by plastic bags.
Right.
Each citizen, all citizens should know there's a law against littering. Whether you throw your trash on Broad Street to get a ticket, or you go on the beach and you throw your trash in the river, or you riding down the highway and you throw your bags on the highway, we're picking on just one little thing, plastic bags. We got plastic cups, we got straws, we got many more things to come with plastic than just plastic bags. But if you listen to everybody who spoke tonight, 90.9% of the people were speaking about plastic bags, and that's it.
Well, they were, but the ordinance does cover foam products.
Yeah, but how many spoke about foam, a bag? I mean, I know what the ordinance says.
Right.
I know what the ordinance says,
right.
But I know what they're thinking too. But we are not thinking. We're not thinking about the people that we are affecting to go in the grocery stores and buy groceries and use plastic bags. People that have to get their car home. Everybody don't have a car. Go in the grocery store and get 4 or 5 bags of groceries. Don't have a car to walk outside and put it in. They either got to catch a cab, they got to walk, or they got to catch the bus. They got to be able to carry their groceries home. We're not thinking about none of those people. We're only thinking about a few people thinking that somebody stupid just going to throw their trash on the street, throw it in the river. That's all we think about, a plastic bag and nothing else. I think we need to give it some more thought. But maybe I'm the only crazy one here tonight. So, y'all do what you want to do, but you don't have my vote. I can tell you right now.
Councilmember Mitchell.
I was thinking more, even if this ordinance is passed, I still said I would like to see even the committee or whomever reach out to each neighborhood association, because I know a lot of this was online. It was going on for over and over again. But a lot of people I represent don't go on online. You see, and I know it's their fault not doing it, but I still have to reach out to them because I have to answer to them myself. So I believe if the committee sends something out to each one of those neighborhood associations president and let them kind of assemble those information out to that particular community, then I'll feel more comfortable. I can say, well, this was given out to you all and you should know about it. Because if you look at the people that I represent, which I have a very diverse district, but a lot of them still saying to me, I don't know anything about that right now today, because they didn't read about it, they didn't go online and check it, but then they're still coming after me. So that's why I mentioned the last meeting I was talking about everyone should know about what they are planning on doing, because they are the people that come up with the big basket of groceries out of the stores. They're the ones that are using most of the plastic bags more. So once you have reached out to them and even sent something out to them, they all feel satisfied, more satisfied that, okay, if you will come to voice your opinion, that's up to you. At least you know about it. So I would still have the committee to send out something. You can get the Sue Griffin and as far as all the neighborhood association presidents, send it out to them, even to the president of the consortium, the neighborhood association, and then send it out to them. Let them disseminate that information out to the body, to the community. So then I'll feel comfortable with that, because otherwise there's a lot of people, Mr. Mayor, there's a lot of people And I know this was out a long time. There's a lot of people in the district I represent. This is like 10,000, 11,000 people. They don't even know anything about it. They're still grumbling about it because they didn't get involved. And I know if we are saved up, that's their own fault. But I still have to represent them. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not knocking the ordinance at all. And I know about it, you know, what's the problem with it. But I say they still need to be informed. So this wouldn't cause any problems at the polls and every place else. I'm telling you what they're saying. So I would still like to have them informed. And so when they don't come to the meetings, I don't come here to voice their opinion, I can feel comfortable and say, well, hey, that's your choice.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Waring.
Go ahead, Mr. Ware. Yeah, I wanted to ask a couple of questions and make a couple of statements. On page 5 of the ordinance, that item K, it says any product purchased, prepared, or packaged outside of the city. I didn't understand exactly why that was put in and then why it was taken out. Can you tell me
Sure.
what was the purpose of that?
So that one, honestly, it was in the Mount Pleasant ordinance, and we had copied it over, and we thought it applied to egg cartons. And when we reread it, we actually thought the verbiage was pretty confusing, and we weren't able to get any clarity on what it really meant. And so we decided to scratch it and just make egg cartons really clear in the one above it.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better. I was reading, why is it in there, and then why is it taken out? And I thought I was missing something. Just a couple things. It's this past, or actually yesterday, I had the opportunity, that terrible capitalist, Justin Ferreira, and three ladies that came up here and spoke, Olivia, Marlo, and Caitlin, took me on a tour of actually around Citadel Mall, back by the theater area back there, and we got down in the ditches and clawed all this stuff out. And it was kind of interesting because there was several bobs of plastic, and it was disintegrating, most all of it. And we were trying to say, well, is this something that's banned or is this something that's not banned? And there were big pieces of plastic wrapping. There were bags from Circle K, the gas station. I'm assuming that's all establishments that would cover those. But there was a lot of small bags from different places that are not exempt, that are exempt, that are not covered by the ban. But it was an eye-opening experience. Well, it really wasn't that much of an eye-opening experience because last time I discussed this thing, I said, we don't have a bag problem, we have a litter problem. And I mean, it's interesting to me to see that if we pass this ban, and I'm gonna probably vote for it, but it's going to solve flooding. You saw the grate up there. It's going to solve flooding. A couple people talked about global warming. Sea rise is going to be solved by this. We do have a really bad problem with litter, and I wish I'd thought about it earlier about maybe asking our police chief or somebody to come here and say, how can we take this ban and during this year really crack down on litter. I mean, I would love to have as part of this ban an instruction to our municipal judges that we need to, something that says, let's go after this litter. It's awful. And when you go out, as I did with these four, and I would suggest every single one of you ought to go out. What I saw the most of was styrofoam cups. They were everywhere. They were in every ditch. They were in every bush. They were everywhere. I would vote to outlaw styrofoam cups tonight, if that was, and so that's why I'm kind of leaning towards this. So now I guess we're going to have paper cups. All these people that were here, most of them were a lot younger than I am. I don't go to Starbucks. I don't like to pay that much for strong coffee. But somebody ought to be in front of Starbucks every morning telling those people to quit throwing those green straws into the woods. Because there's a lot of green straws out there. It's a litter problem. And so
I'm told that there are 500 million plastic straws given away every day in America.
Look, I'm not denying it's a problem. It's not a problem with the plastic. It's a problem with litter. And my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but everything I've heard and read deals with the real plastics. And there's a lot of terms, I think, as Mr. Lewis said, about plastic and bags, and they're kind of interchanged. But the real problem, my understanding, and maybe you have better information about plastic, is really the tires that roll on the street, and just the friction on that takes off some of that tread, and that's microscopic, and it gets washed into the water, and that's really what the fish and everybody are eating when they find plastic. I don't think you can take a fish apart and decide that's a Circle K bag or that's a Harris Teeter bag. It's plastic, right? And that's where most of that plastic is coming from. And the second polluter is all of our polyester fabric.
These were taken out of turtles. So.
Well, I'm not saying you don't find some of it, okay? I'm just saying if you're going to look at the real plastic that's out in the environment, it's not plastic bags. I'll say plastic bags are like 1% or something around that. So again, we got a litter problem. But the second one was the polyester. We wash our clothes and all the fabrics that get washed out of clothes into our estuaries right out of Plum Island. But anyway, I'm gonna vote for this primarily because of the styrofoam products that need to be eliminated. But I really wish we could do something about this litter. This litter. I mean, I look forward to all this problem solving of the flooding and sea rise and everything that this is going to solve. So.
Well, we got to start somewhere. Thank you, Councilmember Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember Councilman White talking about changing behavior. We have a behavior problem. He said that a couple of weeks ago, and he was right. And we also discussed about behavior changing, with grocery stores offering paper or plastic. Talked about other cities, you're now seeing paper straws. But Councilman Lewis has a very good point, and Councilman Mitchell. How often have we seen people walking with 2 or 3 plastic bags going home? I mean, with groceries in them. How many times have we seen somebody riding a bicycle with 2 or 3 plastic bags on the handlebar going home? Somehow, and it's funny, it may be a cultural thing. I discussed with Bill, my daughter was in graduate school in Chicago, inner city, and she got a little cart, 2-wheel cart, and you see them all over in the big cities. But you very rarely see, at least people in Charleston, going to the grocery store with a cart pulling it back. They use the plastic bags. I don't know, maybe it could be an affordability issue with buying the cart. But somehow that needs to be addressed for the less fortunate in our community. I mean, I'm going to support I support the first time, I'm going to support it this time. But from the first to the second reading, the ordinance got a little bit better. This ordinance is going to pass. I don't see anything wrong with waiting until sometimes in December for the third reading. If there's one piece that's missing here in our democracy, we certainly heard from those in support of it. You're hearing from me now. But we really haven't heard from those in the industry. And I don't mean somebody in a factory making plastic bags. I'm talking about like Mr. Condon, who came up earlier, who was for the ban, but I think before he got to this point about the small business person, his time was up and he left. Now, they could have come the first time, they didn't. They could have been here today. They didn't. Councilman Wagner, in conversation, suggested a public hearing on it. We had citizen participation, but we didn't have public hearing. I would encourage some of the people in the industry to come forward, because I think there's some, maybe if both aides got together, we have a little bit better solution. Councilman Griffin is right. I think the January 1st date is good. I mean, we can vote on this in certainly December, but the General Assembly, and we know how the General Assembly works, they're not going to pass anything by January 15th. Okay, I think they're just coming in session in middle January. So most of those bills get through around June, May, June of the session. So I'm not suggesting wait until that period of time, but we certainly have between now and the first week or so of January.
So I will point out, last year, the bill that was introduced in the House was retroactive. And so there is some sense that the sooner the better.
My suggestion was we can vote on this in December and pass it in December, and we still can have an effective date January 1.
If it's the pleasure of council. Councilmember Griffin.
Been reading through a lot of these different items in here, and it seems like if you look at exemptions, and look at item H. Theoretically, you could, for the next year, stock up on plastic bags for a year, and then go into the grocery store, and because you've brought in your own bag, once the law goes in effect, you can still use plastic bags. It says, bags of any type that the customer brings to the store for their own use for carrying away from store goods, they're not placed in a bag provided by the store. Why would we have something like that in there if we're trying to eliminate the use of single-use plastic bags? Why would we have an exemption that you can still bring in a plastic bag and use it? I thought that I'd bring that up because it seems kind of hypocritical to have that in there. I don't know.
I think a lot of people do store their plastic bags, and we just don't want to disallow someone who's going through all that trouble to put them in jail for, fine them for using a bag that they stored for legitimate reuse. Councilmember Jackson?
Yeah, I would just say, thank you, Mr. Griffin. I think that the whole point of this ordinance is not to regulate the actual citizen from doing exactly what they feel free to do with reusing products that they have, retained. Literally, we are trying to change the opportunity for people to use bags that will then stand the test of time. So, and Councilmember Lewis, I have heard you from the very beginning, and I do think that in the inquiries that I've made to Low Country Local First as an example of an association that organizes the interest of local business, which are primarily small business, as you can imagine, that there is a great interest among business owners who are conscientious, and also the marketing world, as Mr. Daniel told us tonight, they're going to line up to create opportunities for citizens to have permanent bags that will be, able to replace. I mean, the volume of plastic bags that a person needs to carry around, as someone said, you basically have 3 items in it and they fall over. So I keep this little bag in my purse, and it carries 4 times what a plastic bag would carry. I have 3 of them, 1 in every receptacle that I own and use on a regular basis. And I think we could dedicate ourselves through the people who want to market and who want to help at-risk communities learn how to appreciate the fact that they've got something that is going to contribute to their kids and their grandkids' welfare over time. So I look forward to the opportunity of helping. I've gone on many sweeps. I would be happy to go to a community center or one of the faith communities and hand out bags and hand out information to help people really appreciate why we're doing this as a conscientious community. And I appreciate that a lot of you are, going to vote for it, even though it might not be the cry of your heart to do so. So, thank you very much.
Councilmember Wagner. I think she was reading my mind a little bit. We voted for it the first time. I did. If it comes to a up or down tonight, I have really no choice but to vote for it again. However, I've been listening now for a good 2 or 3 hours, folks, including the folks around this table. We still have a lot of apprehension because it needs to cook maybe a little bit longer to paraphrase my friend Mr. Moody several years ago when he first coined. I don't think it's totally the way it should be, but that's partially my fault. I did not get my comments to Katie or Mark in a timely manner due to some other problems I was having. So I can't really say bad ordinance because I didn't submit my paperwork. So, having confessed to that, let's think about this for a minute. I was listening to Councilmember Waring. What would another week or two cost? One. What would that really do to us? That's the first question. Second question is we have not totally given all those folks who've been running my phone off the hook from the industry and eating my email up, a real opportunity. There's no doubt in my mind that some version of this thing has to pass, okay, and will pass. But I really think that maybe if, as I told Keith the other day when I saw him, I'd really love to have had a public hearing on it. And that way, the folks that are having apprehension, the small business owners who this will hurt. Maybe if I've only got one small unit doing $30,000 or $50,000 a year and that's how I'm feeding my family, maybe there could be another exception. You know what I'm, if you're following my thought. So what I'm thinking is we've danced around it. So I want to do one thing. Let's see if we can defer it. So I'd like to make a motion to defer one meeting. If it doesn't get a second?
I'll second your motion.
Got a motion to defer and a second. Councilmember White.
I think it's my turn, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, but Councilmember Gregory. This is on the motion to defer.
Yeah, well, I think deferring it is just kicking it down the road again, number one. I don't think we should defer this. We've been working on this for a number of years. Yes, it has some problems. It has some kinks that need to be corrected. And I think we can do that on an ongoing basis. I mean, if you cook it a little more, it's still going to be plastic. And I really think if we listen to the people, okay, the people today, okay, who also make sacrifices to come out and speak about this issue. Where is the industry? We've had 2 or 3 people from the industry objecting. Where are they? Just as the people have made the sacrifice, I think the industry could have done it the same. Why are we kicking this down the road in order for us? No. Please stop. Yeah, this is not for applause at all, folks. Okay, I'm just saying, why are we kicking it down the road? They've had 2, 3, 4 opportunities to speak, to comment. They've had 2 or 3 years while we've been working on this to speak, to comment, and they've not been here. As a council, I think it's important that we listen to the people. The people from our districts,
who spoke in opposition, and I am sensitive, in favor, I'm sorry, thank you. And in all due respect to my councilman, I definitely understand how people reuse plastic bags. We all do it. When we go to a cookout and we want to carry food out, okay, mom or dad brings the plastic bags out to carry it out. They still can do that, okay? But I do think that it's very, very important if we have some of the groceries and some of the industries saying that they're willing to work with us to develop an alternative to plastic, we should take them up on that, okay?
Absolutely.
We really should take them up on that. Because I do think that the folks who are riding the bicycle with the plastic bags would do the same thing if they had alternative bags. I don't think that that's going to make that much of a difference. I really think we've worked pretty hard on this piece. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. And if we're going to set a precedent, okay, that every single thing that this body passes, okay, that we're going to defer it so a specific group can comment when that group has had an opportunity to comment 3 years, okay? What are we here for? I don't understand it. I will not support a deferral on this at all. I think all we're doing is kicking the can down the road. I think that everybody on this council at some point, I think right now there are 7 votes to pass this thing, right now.
Councilmember White, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, if I could. The one thing that I don't believe that this ordinance is as good as it can be. Quite frankly, in its current format, it's certainly not going to have the effect that I think that 99% of the people stood up here tonight and talked about, and that is the opportunity to clean up our waterways and our roadways. Because when you count the number of exemptions in comparison to the things that are going to be banned, it's about 4 times the number of exemptions as it is to items that are banned. And the reality is that this ordinance being passed tonight is not going to stop littering, and it's certainly not going to clean up our waterways. You know, if somebody gets a plastic bag in North Charleston, which I'm assuming they don't have a ban, they get on the bus and they go downtown to work, they don't have anything else to do with that bag and they throw it on the ground, we still have a problem. So, said time and time again, we do have a litter problem. We have a litter problem. And so what we effectively do by passing this ordinance is we impact. Is that recycled? This is aluminum, not plastic, I think. But I do think that ultimately we're not going to end up at the outcome that we all sit here and think we're going to come up with. And Councilor Moody sort of said in jest, you know, flood, sea level rising, it's the same idea. I mean, we're not going to legislate the change of behavior for littering. This is just not going to do it. You know, I sit here and I'm torn. I guess I have to pinch my nose and vote for this thing, but I think it can be better. I really do. And I think the reality, though, is if we really are interested in fixing our littering problem, this is not it. It's enforcement of the existing litter laws. That's what we really need to be focused on.
All right. Councilmember Waring and Shade, and I think Seekings too.
And Councilmember
This is
Jackson.
just on the motion to defer.
And that's what I want to speak to, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'm not in favor of the motion to defer because I think we can give this second reading tonight. Because we are going to have another meeting in December. As a matter of fact, we're going to have, well, again, in December. And we're going to have we're going to have 2 meetings in December. We can get this done, passed in 2018. And I hear my good friend, Councilman Gregory, has been working on this for 3 years, but it's only been in front of this council 30 days. Okay? So then I would say, why can't we go another week? What's the rush to try to get a little bit more accuracy, in particular to what's excluded? And I'd be interested to know how many litter tickets come through our court system. I mean, no, seriously, Lady Bird Johnson would be ashamed of us you know, at least my generation kind of grew up. Well, don't be a little bug was a national trend, okay? And it meant something.
Rotary phone either. It's
Not being a little bug was a national trend, and it meant something in this country. And we've lost that in our community. And we can get that back in our community. If we were to tie, and you know what? And you had the right pictures up there with the truck, trash in the back of the truck. We all have to be better stewards, but we have to enable our enforcement people to issue those fines. And once those fines were to be paid, you know, all of a sudden, habits will be changed, Councilman White. We can give out speeding tickets, but we can't give out tickets for littering. So, again, does the list of exemptions need to be as long? Probably not. But to say that we've been working on it 3 years, 2 years, 18 months, the committee's done the work, I appreciate every bit of that. But by the same token, it can be before this council longer than 30 days. So we don't have to defer it. We can, we don't have to have a motion to defer without voting on the second. If we vote on second and don't do concurrent, it'll automatically be in front of us. Have additional time for the industry to come forward. We haven't asked them to come forward as a council. So anyway, that would be, that's why I'm not going to vote for deferral. I would vote for second reading and then have the third reading in December.
In the interest of time, can we go ahead and vote on the deferral and then get to the matter? Councilmember Mitchell?
No, you're going to, you made a motion to deferral?
Yeah, there's a motion on the floor to defer. It was seconded properly, and it's on the floor now.
Wagner and Lewis.
Any other discussion about the deferral? Hearing none, all those in, Councilmember Shealy, about the deferral.
Well, I just wanted to mention that I called a lot of business owners, restaurant owners, and things like that. In my discussions with them, there were a lot of them that are very much in support of this. However, they didn't realize that we were where we are. Now, why? I don't know. And a couple of them, I said, you know, have you had your head in the sand? This has been going on, you know. But there are business owners that haven't known, you know, for a year or two that this has been worked on, and a lot of them, the only way they knew is because I called. Now, I don't know why that is. But it could be a reason why they have not been here. So I just wanted to mention the same one that I told you about earlier that was for this but needed time. He said, when did this happen? So just want to mention that all of the restaurant owners have not known for a year, 6 months, whatever.
All right. Anything else on the deferral? Councilmember Mitchell?
No.
Okay. Seekings?
I'm waiting till
on the deferral. Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of the deferral, say aye. Got 2 votes. All opposed? Nay. So the motion fails.
It's louder anyway.
Can I entertain a motion?
May I make a motion, Mr.
Yes, yes.
Well, we have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion for approval on the floor.
I don't think it was ever made.
Yes, it was.
It was?
Yes.
Councilmember Shade and Councilmember Gregory.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to
I
accept.
have Waring and Gregory.
Okay.
Well, I'd make a substitute motion if they would accept it, if we just give it second reading, not second and third reading.
Come on.
Well, we get to vote on, we're voting second reading first. I don't want to go for second and third tonight.
Right.
And then it would automatically be deferred to third reading. That's what I want to do. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we can either vote tonight, or if it fails, you can vote on it another time. So, can I make a couple of comments, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. So, this matter has been debated for some time through our resiliency committee. We brought it forward some months ago and decided it needed more input from the business community. We reached out to the chamber and other business groups grocery stores. We talked to a number of you. In fact, we amended the ordinance, Councilmember Mitchell, to make sure we included that every store would have to provide a free bag of some kind to customers, you know, if plastics weren't allowed. So a lot of thought has gone into this. And in fact, at our last meeting where we robustly discussed this ordinance, staff was listening very carefully, and that's why you ended up with 5 amendments on this ordinance, because we knew it wasn't perfect. It's still not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but we've really put a lot of thought into it, and we've come a long way. And think about this for a minute. We're not going to enforce this thing for a year. So if there's a change that someone brings forward that needs to be made, we can make a change to the ordinance before we enforce it. It's true. And so I would urge council to please proceed and approve this ordinance tonight. We've put a lot of thought into it. I think you've gotten a clear indication from citizens all of our city, including many business owners, that they support it. No, we're not trying to solve world peace with this ordinance. It's not going to be the end all to climate change, but we've got to start somewhere. And the thing about this ordinance, it identifies specifically those products that are most harmful when they do get in the environment. And yes, that doesn't stop people from throwing them in the environment, but we're cutting off the supply chain so that hopefully over time, starting somewhere, starting here, that these products won't get into our ecosystem and be harmful not just to wildlife, but eventually to us. When the young lady was here talking about oysters, you know, I'm thinking about going to Oyster Roast next week. I'm thinking I'm going to be eating microplastics in my oysters that were harvested here in South Carolina. We got to start somewhere. So I would urge you to approve this tonight. It's not perfect, but we can still make changes if some compelling amendment comes forward. Councilmember Waring, and then Shade, and then Moody. Waring? Oh, I'm sorry, Seeking.
Shade first.
Sorry. It's been a long night. So a couple things. First, the enemy of good is better. We have a good ordinance out there. We've heard from a lot of people. And I would suggest to my fellow council members that those who are in the business of supplying in the chain of plastics and styrofoam and in the business, they're actually ahead of us. And I sort of observed it this way. And, you know, we vote what our constituents want to do and vote with your eyes and what you see. So for those of you all who are around on Saturday, our harbor did its own version of a marsh sweep to the tune of an 8.76-foot tide. And I went across the James Island Connector at 8:30 a.m., which was high tide. And then I actually went for a run. I heard Mr. Quick talk about along the Pitt Street Bridge about 10 o'clock that morning. And the tide was so high that it had gotten to places in the marsh that it never touches. And it was sort of that gray day. It was really those low clouds. But if you looked around the margins between the water and you looked at the land, there was a ring all around the harbor in Charleston, in Mount Pleasant, as you went up the rivers. And it was a ring of styrofoam and plastic that had been swept by the high tide up along the margins of our shorelines. And if there was ever any evidence that we've got a problem with plastics out there, that was a great example of it. So after doing all that and going along the Pitt Street Bridge and running, I went and did the one thing I love to do on Saturday, which is go to Five Loaves and have a Coca-Cola with ice and a straw. And I forgot to bring the straws that y'all kindly gave me last week, and I forgot my paper straws, and I sat down and I asked for a Coke. I got it. Then I asked for a straw, and they told me no. Tell me no. So they're way ahead of us. This is a small business that's already been out there thinking about it. Now, there was some negotiating. I did observe they still had some straws on site, but they were actually willing to sell them to me. But the industry's out there thinking about it. So enforcement's not going to be a problem. This is, I said this last time, and I'll say it again. It's a lot like the smoking ban. In 10 years from now, we'll look back, and people just, it will be a natural. Nobody today wouldn't lean across to someone in a restaurant and start smoking and say, you just can't do that. It's be the same with straws and plastics and styrofoam. You know, if we give this second reading tonight and then put off third reading, it's coming back up again next week. Nothing's going to get accomplished in that week that's any different, the enemy of good being better, and we're going to have to take up our budget. Let's pass this thing. It's time to pass it. We've been asked overwhelmingly by our constituents to pass this. We've made adjustments. Once it gets in place, we'll see how it all goes. It's really not just a 1, but a 2-year period in which there will be some experimentation with this, and we'll see how it goes. But, you know, from where I sit, if we're going to vote for it, let's vote for it tonight, second and third reading. That's what I'm prepared to do. And then let's get on to the budget next week, which is what we need to do.
Okay. Who hasn't spoken on this matter yet that would like to be heard?
I have my hand up several times. I've been trumped.
Councilmember Shade.
Councilmember Shade.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh, bad word. All right. We need to pass this tonight. We've got a budget we've got to take out next week, and I know how long that budget is going to take us on December the 4th. And I just don't see what's going to change between now and December the 4th. Everybody had an opportunity to come forward and talk about this, and industry members are here. We've got emails from them, we got letters from them. They've had their opportunity to talk. We went out and met with them. Our staff went out and talked to them. As the mayor said, what this is going to do is stop the flow, or reduce the flow, or have an impact on the flow. And I've been looking at this gentleman up here with the red hat on when he came down and talked, and that's why I wanted to bring up this slide behind our clerk's head. Plastic is going to be around if it's there. If it's not there, it won't be around. I mean, that sounds kind of silly, but the basic fact of all this is that you don't have to recycle something that does not exist. This plastic is around. It's going to stay around forever, and it's toxic, which means it's bad for us. And so if we just get rid of 1,000 bags or 2,000 bags or 10,000 bags, whatever it is, we're getting rid of that many more bags out of our system. Now, the point about the litter, I think that falls back on our Public Safety Committee to look at why we're not enforcing litter rules, and that should be one of the items on our next meetings on public safety is why we're not enforcing litter rules and get that taken care of. But the folks who are here tonight are going to come back on December the 4th. We're going to hear them the same thing over and over again, and we're going to take up their time, and they've spoken. And it's very clear the message that our citizens want, not what the industry wants, but what our citizens want. And it starts with that grassroots basis. This is what they want, and we need to listen to them because it's the right thing to do. Let's pass this thing tonight and move on.
All right. Anyone else? Councilmember Waring, then Moody.
I think Councilmember Jackson has had her hand up. So.
I think. Yeah. Councilmember Waring.
Had 1-0.
Let me comment before. I was asked to amend this because I made a motion to approve. We want to amend it to start on January 1st, 2019.
2020.
Yeah. I'll accept that amendment.
You accept an amendment for the enforcement to start January 1, 2020.
350th anniversary of Charleston.
On our 350th anniversary. Yes, sir.
I do have a question about that amendment, because you actually said something, Mr. Mayor, that could possibly happen. You said about the retroactivity of the General Assembly. Why don't we do it December 31st? Okay? December 31st. My point is, if they were to go back to the beginning of the year, the General Assembly.
That's enforcement only. We're making it effective upon passage.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
I stand
So I think we're making it.
I'm good with that amendment.
Unless we can make it effective retroactively. Can we do that? Okay. Councilmember Moody.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just saying I agree with
You second his amendment? I second it. Okay. Okay.
Now, no, I wanted to speak what I wanted to speak about. Oh. I just commented on his amendment.
Oh, I see. I thought that's what you wanted to say.
No. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everything that Councilman Seeking said about the marsh and the high 8.5-foot tide and all of that is correct. Everything that Councilman Shaheed has said is correct. And none of that changes December 4th. The comments have been, people came, the citizens spoke, and we all heard them. I agree with that. As I said, I support this. But every step along the way, it has gotten better. This is a better ordinance than it was 2 weeks ago. The ordinance that we're voting on tonight is a better ordinance than it was 2 weeks ago. Why? Because we put some addition into it. Right. We heard a little bit more. Again, what is the damage? you still will accomplish, we will accomplish, the citizens will accomplish getting this passed on third reading in December. So this whole, the world is going to come to an end between today and a week from now. I just disagree with that. I will support the second reading on it. I do think we should give the opportunity to look at that list of exemptions, and if the industry wants to have some input, at least they should be heard. So,
Councilmember Moody.
All right. I want to vote for second reading tonight, but I want to instruct our staff or whomever to look at how we can strengthen these litter laws between now and when we vote for the third. I mean, personally, I feel like if we don't at least do that, we have passed an empty law that's not going to really solve any problem. It's just going to feel good, we'll go away from here, and everything will go right on. That's why I want to see if we can improve it with the enforcement of litter, what we can maybe do to add to this ordinance between now and, I don't know if they can get it done by the 4th, but certainly by the 18th, that if we could make that and then give it third reading, I would be very supportive of that. So that's what I want to see done. You asked what the reason was why you're going to defer it. That's why I want to defer it, because I think we're missing an opportunity.
Well, I understand that. I mean, you just heard from our chairman of public safety that he's going to take this matter up. And with all due respect, I think if we need to change or enhance our litter laws, that's a different law from this. That's a different ordinance from this. And we ought to just put this on the books and then deal with those.
But then we would have two ordinances on both, one about litter and one about bags that don't do anything.
Yeah, but this does so many different things, and we listened very carefully at the last meeting, and Katie and Mark and others went through every point, suggestion. That's what led to these changes, these amendments that we came back to you with, and we have a good one tonight to push back the enforcement. That's fine. We just made an amendment. If there's something specific you've got to add to it, you would think we would have heard it tonight. Let's make another amendment if there's something that directly impacts this ordinance and move on with it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember.
yes, and this is illegal. Can't we just simply amend this ordinance tonight to include enforcement of our litter laws? Can't we cross them that way?
Well, you could do that, although we do have litter laws in effect right now.
Yes.
And we can look at ways to strengthen them. And the issue there is really enforcement. It's not the law. I mean, there's a good law in the books. It can always be tweaked or whatever. But the issue is enforcement and how we can improve enforcement of the litter laws. And that is a discussion that should be had with livability, with Dan and with Chief Reynolds. And so, you know, we could add an amendment that refers somehow to littering, but in fact, they're two separate legal schemes, and they probably do not need to be intertwined because, again, we have a separate set of ordinances that deal with litter already on the books. You know, again, I think the discussion has been, how do we look at those separately and see what we can do about stepping up enforcement of those laws. And we could look at that possibly before the last meeting in December and come back to you at that meeting with some suggestions on improving the litter ordinance and how to step up enforcement. And we would, certainly legal will be happy to do that and work with police and livability to come back and put some teeth into that ordinance if that's necessary.
Councilmember Griffin, then let's call the question.
I definitely see your point, because if you look at this ordinance, you look at the beginning and it talks about the environmental impact of plastic. I mean, even if it's just a reference that if you're seen littering a plastic, your fine will be this, just so that it says it in this ordinance, because we're saying that plastic is so bad. We've had all these comments that say that plastic is the #1 pollutant out in the ocean, and if we walk around Charleston and we look at all the litter, especially in ditches and all throughout the city, it's plastic, plastic, plastic. You know, I think that plastic should be, you know, littering of plastic should be a huge fine or a huge punishment. So I definitely agree with you that there's got to be some way that we at least, yeah.
Susan, this ordinance regulates.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
I guess I would just suggest, Councilmember Griffin, maybe we could put it in to the whereas. So simply, whereas the city of Charleston enforces a litter law of, you know, whatever the legal code references, and leave it at that. It just states that we have a litter enforcement policy in conjunction with the fact that we want to stop the pipeline for the worst items that are being littered. So I think that the idea of having public safety review the litter ordinance and decide if it's strong enough and it just needs to be enforced in some better way when we have all the police there are in the world to do that. So I would support that you could put a whereas statement in there, but I don't want to
put it under enforcement of penalties, not another letter and say that subject to our litter laws. That's all I'm saying. If you're seen littering a plastic, here's the question.
Mr. Mayor.
I think that's mixing up.
Councilmember White.
So, you know, combining litter law and a plastic ban, probably not, as legal staff. I mean, that just probably gets too convoluted, and it really is just sort of doesn't really do anything. Unfortunately, just like this ordinance is really not going to have an impact as it's written to what everybody that I heard stand up wants to hear, and that's fixing our litter problem. But one thing can be added in here. Well, all right, let me make this one comment. The reason why, if you go to Disney World, there's no trash on the floor is because at any point in that park, you're within 20 feet of a garbage can. Go check it. And the reason why there's no gum there is because they don't sell gum. But the point being is that garbage, if people are given a better alternative to throwing something on the ground, they will likely take it. So why don't we add into this ordinance something that stipulates that we're going to add more trash receptacles across this city and give people a better alternative to throwing trash on the ground?
If I can comment, just, and Sterling brought this up, you know, going back to adding litter to this, the whole point of this ordinance deals, I'm sorry, this ordinance focuses on the businesses, and littering focuses on the person who litters. And so they really are two different mechanisms to deal with a common problem. So I think, again, the recommendation to look at our littering laws and maybe also talking about placing more garbage cans around the city or trash cans around the city or whatever are excellent suggestions. I just don't think that they need to be tied to this particular ordinance at this time.
All right, let's call the question if we may.
Ask the question.
Yes, sir.
Could we add something in here? I mean, later on we're going to take up this hate crime issue where if you go out and do something and then you hurl some kind of a racial epithet or something after it, you can get charged twice. Is there something like that this could go to maybe beef up the enforcement of littering?
Well, again, this is targeted toward businesses.
Okay,
littering,
so you might be able to do that. You might be able to do that in the litter law.
Absolutely.
This is the supply chain. This is the supply chain. All right, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the ordinance as amended by staff coming to you and then by Councilmember Griffin delaying the
Councilmember Shade
delaying the enforcement date. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, so
the ayes have it. Now for third reading and ratification Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our ordinance, speaking of the hate crime. Well, we have items 2 through 6, I believe.
And Mayor, we have a few more, so I had it written down.
Yeah.
Just a
We
minute.
also have,
Mayor, can you ask them to be quiet when they leave?
please try to be quiet as y'all leave. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Thank y'all.
Approval of 2 through 6 plus 10.
No, it's
9, 10, 11.
through 11. So
Okay.
1 through 6, which we've taken 1.
Right.
We've already taken 1, so it's 2 through 6, and then 9 through 11.
Okay, we have a motion for second reading for 2 through 6,
Through 6
and then 9, 10, and 11.
through 11.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
It passed.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, the ayes have it. Now for third reading and ratification. Up.
Okay. No. Where are we? Second reading.
We doing the second reading.
I got a question.
Okay, Councilmember Gregory.
I had a question on number 11.
Number 11.
Number 10.
Number 10.
There's a revision in here, and it probably will affect Councilmember Lewis and my district, and it has to do with vehicular access between Grove Street and Hampton Park, a permanent 30-foot access easement for. My question is, where is that? Is that 11th Street? Will vehicular traffic mean anything other than service trucks? Are we now talking about, I'm sorry.
This is number 11?
Number 10.
Number 10.
Okay. And go to B. The second B down. You'll see a
12.
small b. Okay.
Okay.
Permanent 30-foot access easement for vehicular access between Grove Street and Hampton Park. Where is that? How do we define vehicular? Are we talking about just being able to go back and forth?
I don't think it's this thing came before real estate.
Understand.
It seemed to me like if there was some easement or access, you could do something with the gas line or something that was running through that area.
But isn't this what we're getting as a result of what we're... where my biggest fear is this is opening up 11th Street, is it?
No.
Okay.
This has to do with the future of SCE&G potentially having to expand that substation into the dog park, and then having, and depending on what happens to that parking lot at the corner,
we go through
it's right there where you enter the dog park. It's just a future easement to make sure there's always a curb cut to the park.
We talked about that, thank you.
Can we make that easement conditional on them taking down those ridiculous power poles they have going right through the middle of Hampton Park, which are an embarrassment of epic proportions? They really are. And we should do something about that, by the way. They're horrible. Anyway.
I'm afraid that cat,
I did not.
That bird has already flown the coop.
Where are we?
They're terrible.
One meeting.
I need some clarity. Do we have a motion on 2 through 6 and 9 through 11? Somebody made a motion. Somebody made a motion.
Already voted on second reading.
Everybody's talking. I can't hear the names.
Yeah.
Okay, Griffin and who else? Okay.
And that's for third reading? Okay. Any other?
I was asking for second. Who
Chief.
had second reading? Okay, so we got to do second reading first. All right, Ben. Okay, we haven't done third reading.
We hadn't voted on third reading yet.
No. Right, that's what we're trying to.
Right, I threw it off. Right.
Okay, so we voted on second.
Yeah.
You got third motion and a second?
I need a motion for third.
So moved.
Okay.
Okay.
Gregory.
Are we good?
Gregory and Griffin, you want to, okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor of third reading, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So give me just a second here.
Done, right?
What?
Well, just a minute.
So next is the bill up for first reading.
Right.
Number 1, it's just a rezoning on a residential lot. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So our next regular meeting will be next Tuesday.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before we go to the next meeting, I have something on the miscellaneous I'd like to bring up.
Okay. But
I know the
Madam
clerk had a
Clerk,
question, but go ahead.
Madam Clerk, did you have something for us?
No, no.
Okay. Councilmember Ware.
I got a call today from a constituent that had a FEMA claim, flood claim. FEMA finally, after months and months, paid the claim. They have a first mortgage and a second mortgage from the city because the city put a roof on the house.
I see.
They sent the check to the first mortgage holder. They endorsed the check. They brought the check to the city to endorse so they can get the work done. The city refused to sign the check, to endorse the check, and the constituent said, I need this money to do the work. In fact, the carpet and all has been ripped out of the house since the flooding occurred. When the constituent brought to the city's attention that I don't have the money to do this, now this is what the constituent told me. I didn't hear our staff say this. You can get a bank loan, and when you get the work done, then we'll endorse the check. Well, I could tell you, we had a number of properties due in Hugo, and we had mortgages on them. And if the mortgage company didn't endorse the check, we couldn't have got the work done. So I can't think of, and we got bankers around this table, a situation where a house is in need of repair, has a first mortgage and a second mortgage, and the homeowner's going to go out there and get a third mortgage to get the work done that FEMA has already issued a check to pay. So if that is in fact the case and that is a policy, we need to change that policy so our staff would be able to. In this case, it's about $10,000 worth of work. Again, it did not affect the roof. It was from flooding. In the meantime, these people are still waiting to get monies to start work.
It hadn't come to my attention, but
I just found out about this today, but if that's the case, and the first mortgage holder has already endorsed the check, why on earth would the city not endorse the check so the client can transact the proceeds, get the work done on it?
I don't know a good reason, but if there is one, I'll find out, and if not, we'll sign it.
Thank you. Thank you,
yes,
sir.
Sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. So, I was about to say, when the, Susan, would you help me look into that in the morning, please? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So the next meeting is next Tuesday, December 4th. Then we have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission finally on December 6th. And then another City Council workshop, December 11th at 4 o'clock. So we're going to give the citizens their money's worth over the next couple of weeks, but then we'll have a nice holiday season.
What's the workshop on?
It's something that we had counseled about 4 months ago. It's about all our innovation stuff, and we have a speaker coming. So there being no further business this evening, we stand adjourned. Thank you.